Hello, today is April 26th, 2022. My name is Gabriela Garza. I'm interviewing Jose Martinez for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Mr. Martinez, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there's anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there's something that you want to talk about, please bring it up and we can talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive right to the interview and any other materials you donate to special collections and archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. 1, do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History Mini Project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from that pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends it to UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members, so this will not be part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes, I agree.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces will receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you say in the interview questions I will now ask. Okay. All right. Jose, thank you for your time. Your stories and experiences are valuable to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and to our partners at the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. I've been hoping to interview you since last time I had the opportunity to contribute to the Voces archive, as I've told you a couple of times now, due to your work with the Education Department at Mexic-Arte Museum, your work as a visual and musical artist, and my own knowledge of you as someone who is passionate about social justice advocacy, which is often expressed through work as an educator, but also genuinely guides your lifestyle and values. Your stories and experiences are especially meaningful as an artist from the Texas-Mexican border city of El Paso, a city that often feels like a cousin to the Rio Grande Valley, which is where I am and where I'm from, because you are uniquely situated as someone who works with kids in under-resourced regions in Austin, Texas, and because I know you to be someone with an active curiosity about the local political landscape in the city, which is currently experiencing exponential levels of economic and population growth despite and amidst COVID-19. Thank you for letting me help facilitate the preservation of your perspective for the Voces archive. I know you have many meaningful stories and experiences to share about how COVID-19 has impacted these roles you carry out in your life. So before we talk about COVID-19 stories, can you please share with us a little bit about yourself, who you are and how you wish to be known? Who is Jose Luigi?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it better myself. That's a great bio. Um, yeah, like you said, I was born in El Paso. I was raised in El Paso. As I'm sure you and other border residents can relate, the border has always been like a very sheltered bubble for Latinos, I feel. Even though recently with the whole 2016 and the rise of open fascism with the elections and Trump, it was surprising to realize how much of that lived in the borders. But aside from that, culturally, it has always been a bubble. Like it has always been very protective in the sense that because we are the majority there, you never really feel a lot of like racism or yeah, any type of discrimination against Latinos because like 90% of the people there are Latinos. So it wasn't until I left Austin, which was when left El Paso, which was when I was 25. I'm 31 right now. When I was 25, I went to Chihuahua. So it's not much different, but it's where I did start to feel and kind of have this like awakening towards Chicano identity, so to speak, because I always thought I was Mexican American, I guess. And um, it was my first time in Mexico. I grew up most of my life on the border, going between Juarez, El Paso. Pre 9/11, it was super easy. Like everyone else had that lifestyle. We would go every weekend for groceries, for the dentist, the doctors, because my parents just believed that the healthcare system was better there and the doctors were better there and everything. And so we would go for everything. We had family there, so we would even go to like Sunday cookouts almost every weekend. It was that easy to cross and get back. But then 9/11 happened, and that's when it had an enormous ripple effect on, I guess, everyone in the world, maybe at least in the US, but I think more so in the borders and more so the South borders, like always, because then the lines to cross back were like 3 to 6 hours. And so it was, now you had to think twice about going over for just a little grocery shopping or a dentist appointment or something. And so that in turn, that was on a personal level, but also on a community level, that's the drug wars started going crazier because security was tighter. So that started changing a lot of relations between cartels um, and so I think like prices and things started going up in between shipping of drugs and things that cartels ship. And so then the turf wars started happening, and so a lot of murders and assassinations and like in public that weren't happening like that before started to happen. So it was no longer a safe place. A lot of people, I think, a lot of people who were struggling financially as well in Juarez started to take advantage of the just how easy it was to like scare people and rob people and kind of kidnap people. And so it wasn't just cartels, it was like this big rise of uh, a big like burst in the local economy, very kind of micro, that changed everything. And so like the entire El Paso's history, at least more contemporary history, was always like a rite of passage that in their high school years, you would like go and party in Juarez because the drinking age was 18. So even if you had like, it was easy to get fake IDs. And from what I hear from like my brother's generation and beyond, because our generation was the last one, '08. We didn't really get to party in Juarez because it was already dangerous. The violence was already like at its peak in '07, '08. So of course my parents were like super watchful and protective that we weren't going to Juarez. But it was something that almost every teen and every generation before me like experienced. And I know this is not, I'm getting like, we're not talking about this, but um, so point is that I did grow up in Mexico a lot. I would spend my summers in Chihuahua as well, where with my grandma and all sorts of things every so often at Christmas. And so yeah, I did. It wasn't until I spent a whole year living there to get my dual citizenship that I realized like, dang, like no matter how fluent I am in Spanish or how well I can even draft an email in Spanish and be able to hold a job in Chihuahua, which I did. I worked at like a city museum and gallery there. Like I was able to do almost everything just as good as everyone else, but they still called me a gringo, right? And so, and even my cousins, like I can know more about their own history, about their own country, their own cities, their own um even like Mexicas and indigenous history, culture, folklore that they don't even know. But I'm still always a gringo to them. And same for when I'd come back into the States, I would be, no matter what, I go to Austin, I go anywhere, like I can dye my hair blonde, get blue contacts, put on, become a white centered norm of what an American is, and speak perfect English, and I'm still gonna be Mexican. Like I can't get rid of that. People will always know. And so that's when I got connected with my Chicano like identity, because what's the difference of Chicano and Mexican American? So debate I have often with people, because I sometimes will be like, you're Chicano, like even with my dad, I'm like, you're Chicano because he grew up in Juarez, even though he was born in El Paso, he grew up in Juarez on the other side, but he was still very much exposed to all the American culture and all like the American music, the American TV, movies, everything, fashion. So being on the border, no matter what side, is always, I think, like a Chicano breeding ground, because yeah, the access to the culture is very different. And so he'll be like, no, I'm Mexican. But even though he was born in El Paso, which, we can go on and on forever about the legalities of all that. But overall, I think Mexican American is like, you think that it's more optimist, like you feel like, oh yeah, I'm so both, like I'm totally American and I'm totally Mexican, both countries will accept me and claim that, like but I think Chicano is more like realist and kind of, it seems more pessimist, but I think it's not, but it's more realist. Like I said, it's like, it's the reality that you'll never be either fully, and that's cool too. Like and when I, here at the museum, when I give tours and talk about that, sometimes I'll do it to like UT international students. They're like coordinator, coach person that shows them around and helps them like integrate into the city. And um, they'll bring them here, and a lot of them will resonate with that from like Asian countries and borders and things over there. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, I feel that, because like in Korea or this or that. And I'm like, damn, I would have never, like they face similar things of like cultures being mixed and so on. So anyway, that's me, that's my life. I I've always been in the arts. I studied graphic design in UTEP in El Paso, and double majored graphic design and painting. And then I worked in advertising for a bit. And then it wasn't until I left to Chihuahua where I was like started getting more into museums. Um, and then when I realized that if I stayed in Chihuahua, I was never gonna earn enough to like not live with my mom. And so I decided to come back to Austin. It was my second attempt at living in Austin at 26 in 2016. And that's when the elections were happening. So I didn't really, I was never like, I was never, I wasn't like a lifelong talented kid. I was never great at drawing and as a child or anything. Like it really took my own kind of like interest and drive. And it was like El Paso street artist in high school when that I started seeing and recognizing, and that's what kind of got me more into the arts. And and so, and I grew up with music as well because my dad's a musician, untrained, non-professional, just kind of hobbyist musician. But I grew up with like guitars and things always around the house, and I never cared for them. But at one point, I think it was in fifth grade, he got me like a real guitar, and I was like, I don't want it. I'm not gonna play. And he kind of like forced me to play, and I remember like I'd be crying because my fingers would hurt, and I was like, I'd be playing. But I'm thankful for it now because it's my favorite means of medium of expression. It's the easiest one. And so I'm saying that to kind of, I hope, I don't know if this will, and I'm going to answer questions about this later, but I've always been like in between the two mediums. One was kind of like forced upon me, and the other one I kind of took up on my own. And I even remember in high school when I was a senior and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to go to college for. I I was between being a music therapist or an art therapist because I was like really into psychology too, and like I loved all these like philosophers and books and movies that were all like crazy and deep, um and I thought, and I think that's what propelled me more into the visual arts, because I felt like, man, I have so many important things I want to say that everyone needs to know and hear, and so art is a good way of doing that. And so when it was time to pick, I said, would I rather be formally trained in music or in art? And I said, well, I kind of feel comfortable and good with how I express in music, and I feel like if someone told me how to do it, I wouldn't like it anymore, because like I already had that experience with my dad. So I was like, nah, I'm good with that. I think I'm gonna go for the arts because I suck, and I'm like, I can only get better with that. And I welcome all the knowledge and there's so many mediums and so many things. I'd rather learn all that. And so yeah, I went to college freshman year, double majoring psychology and art. And as soon as I went to my psychology intro classes, they were like in giant auditoriums with like 200 kids, and it was hard to pay attention. It wasn't what I thought. Like the books, it was very like, oh, I have to study all this, and this isn't as exciting. And then I'd go take my basics in the art building, and I'd see the seniors like with paintings like these and all over the hallways during finals, giving critiques, like all cool. And I'd see them like doing crazy like welding and all this stuff, and I was like, dang, this is what education could be like, yeah, because we grow up in this education system that's, you already know, the public school system. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna drop psychology and go full on into the arts. And so my advisor was like, well, graphic design is where money's at in the arts. And I was like, okay, I could do that. And so I double majored graphic design painting. I graduate, I start working in ad agencies, and immediately disillusioned and disheartened with what it's about and how much like creative freedom you actually get. And I don't know, the more I was, and then I came to Austin and tried working out here, and I was just like, man, I'm helping like rich people who don't really deserve to be rich in my eyes uh keep getting richer, helping them with my talent and like advertise things that are kind of pointless. And so it didn't feel like I was contributing a necessary skill or trade, and especially in times of need, because now fast forward to 2016, I'm coming back from Chihuahua and I'm trying to like be back in Austin with the sole purpose of making music, because I was talking to my lifelong best friend and drummer from seventh grade, Daniel, who was already out here, and he was teaching government at Del Valle High School, which I ended up working at later. And I was talking to him and he was like encouraging me. He's like, dude, you should just come out here. It's really cool. It's really fun. There's definitely, you'll find a lot of jobs. Like, just try again and we'll make music. It'll be fun. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm just gonna go out there. And so I came out here, and it was 2016. So Hillary Trump is like full swing, the Bernie backstabs full swing. And so I'm just like, dang, like I was very surprised at how many Latinos were like Trump supporters and being racist, and still like it was mind-boggling. So I felt like, you know what, I'm tired of working at this restaurant, like, and trying to get graphic design jobs. Like, I'm gonna become a teacher. I'm gonna do an online certification, and I'll be an art teacher. Like, because I would see my friends, two of my really good friends, my best friends, they're both teachers, and they both teach economics and government at the Valle High School. And I would see the way they would talk about their students like very fondly, like, oh yeah, I love that kid, he's so smart, like, or this kid, or oh yeah, I had this nice moment. And I just felt like they were doing more real differences. And I was like, man, well, I don't know any of those things, but I do know art. So I guess I could be an art teacher. And I was like, yeah, that'd be fun. And I like floated the idea, and they were like, dude, do it. The art teacher's never doing anything. She can't, like, I go in there and she's like working on her own art. And I was like, nice. Like, not that I don't want to do anything, but I was like, I could do more than that, if that's the low bar. And so and then paid summers and paid time off as a creative, I was like, this is going to be perfect for me. And so yeah, I got my online certification while I was working as a server at a restaurant. and I was living out with a friend on a friend's couch for more than I want to say. um and but it was great. Like it really took my social network, my community to support me. Like I couldn't have done it alone, and I wouldn't be any more proud to say like, yeah, I did it all by myself. And no, like I'm happy that being a good friend allowed me to be able to tap into these resources. And that friend never ever made a face at me, never batted an eye or anything. And if anything, we got like even closer, and he became even like a tighter of a friend, and still a friend that I've networked with and give opportunities to through the museum today. He's a graphic designer for a really like cool ad agency. Well, they call them creative directors now. Um, and so, yeah, that's me. I taught 2016, 17. No, um, I was doing my online certification, and then Trump won, and it was like very disheartening. And then I remember in December, my friends call me and they're like, "Hey, the art teacher's leaving. Like, he's not coming back next semester. You should apply." And I was like, "Damn, I'm not even done with my certification." And they're like, "Who cares? Just apply anyway." And I was like, "Okay." So I applied, and they put in their good references too, two of them. So then they called me, they interviewed me in December, and I was like, "Dang, should I go?" And I was like, "I'm not even done with my certification." But if there's one thing that Trump inspired me, it was that. I was like, you know what? If Trump can be president without any experience and no certifications, I'm gonna go and be a teacher too without it. And so yeah, I did. I went. I guess I killed the interview and became the art teacher. That starting January mid-year. Super challenging because these kids had like, I mean, it was like a very, and this is a common problem with all public schools, but a white teacher who was just very disconnected and had different expectations of the kids. And so he was just kind of like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go work with my brother who's inventing like the smart water bottle that counts how many times you drink. And so I was like, hell yeah, yeah, like I'll take it. And yeah, the kids were rough at first, but I think little by little, like they I won them over, and some of them became friends that I still have today. Like two of them, we play Xbox together. They're like 22 now. And we play Xbox together with those other two teachers as well, like every Monday. Um, and so yeah, and they've become real solid parts of the friend group as well. And I think that's kind of education's goal, is to not just be like a transient, forgettable identity that as most teachers are to us, and that's not their fault, it's the system's fault. But and then the museum would work with Del Valle High School a lot for our fine arts event and everything, so I met the education people through that. And then they told me they were hiring one time, and I applied, and then I got a interview, and then with my founder director Silvia Orozco, who you know. And then that interview was like 2-3 hours, so I was like, I think I got it, because we were just kind of hanging out, just talking. And then she was even talking about like, oh yeah, go show him where he's gonna be doing prints and stuff. And I was like, dang, she basically was already telling me I got the job. But so yeah, I started working here as an education associate, which is basically like the museum teacher. I've been here for 3 years now. And yeah, I think that transition was it was great for me. It opened up a lot of doors and networked me a lot, and also allowed me to become a bigger asset to my community, my network of friends and artists. And it just really like propelled me into the local art scene, which I felt I wouldn't have gotten if I would have stayed within the classroom walls, as great as that was. And I do feel like the impact is a little bit more amplified with the programming that we do here. And so here we are. That's how I met you. And now we're getting a UT interview.
Excellent. Yes. Cool. That was awesome. Yes. We'll return back to talking about the museum and your work as an artist. I think I have some questions about like how did you get into it, but I think you answered them. So I'll just go into the questions once we get there.
Yeah.
Okay. So This first section of questions asks you to please share your stories and memories from when the COVID-19 pandemic made its first impacts in December 2019 to about the summer of 2020. So the first question I want to ask you is, can you share some memorable stories about how you first heard or learned about COVID-19, whether it be through radio, TV, children, social media, etc.?
Yeah. So from what I remember, just off the top, was watching the news in Wuhan, China, right? And I was like, oh wow, damn, that's crazy. Like they're kind of being a little extra, but okay, cool. It's like a virus, whatever. Like it broke out locally. And I would see like the pictures of the robots that would be like moving and then like spraying stuff or telling people to go indoors and not be outside. I was like, dang, that's kind of scary. China, we were just like, wow, communist China. But at the same time, um, once it was like January and they're like, the first case is in Seattle or something, or Washington. I was like, dang, I hope it doesn't get crazy. And like, nah, it's not going to. But I specifically remember, and of course, like the memes, the internet mainly. I specifically remember because my best friend Daniel, who's I mentioned earlier, my lifelong drummer, his birthday's March 13th, and we were having a party at his house on March 13th, and it was so like awesome, movie like very wholesome. All the friends were there. It was like a lot of love, we kind of didn't know that would be like the last time we would hang out, because literally the next day they were like, all right, everything is shutting down, everything stopped, like work from home, we're closing this, we're closing that. I think it was a Wednesday, if I remember correctly, or a Thursday. But yeah, that was like the last time. And even going to that party, we felt a little like, I don't know, should we? Like it was already in mid-March. And then yeah, like everything shut down after that. And I remember they first said just like, it's just for 2 weeks. And we're like, okay, we could do 2 weeks. And then it was like, oh no, like 3 months. And then it was like by summer, and it just kept going and going, as you know, as you're but yeah, that was my first encounter with the news.
At what point did you realize that the pandemic was a serious life-altering event, or do you not think it's serious? And why?
Definitely serious. I mean, it changed. It's, as they say, the word of the day, the word of the pandemic is unprecedented, and it was unprecedented for real. Like nothing like that had ever happened in many people's lifetimes. I think everyone's, because it was like the Spanish flu. I don't know if anyone's still alive from the Spanish flu era. But I think, like I said, at that party was a very memorable milestone, because we were already kind of like, is this serious? Like, should we be doing this? Like, we were like, should we be sharing cigarettes? I guess, we're like, I don't know, like we wouldn't think of how much contact and like germs and stuff we had prior to. And so definitely serious in the sense, of course, how many lives it took. It almost took my mom's life. It took my aunt's, her sister's life. So it's weird because, yeah, like I didn't think it would hit so close to home, but it did. And so of course it's serious, and I still haven't gotten it. So, and even times when I was like, this is it, I have all the symptoms, got the chills, I had a headache, I feel hungover, like when I got the shot, like this is it, like I know. And I tested like 3 times and it was negative, and I was like, what? So I guess I still haven't got it, but it nonetheless, it's super serious, and it claims so many lives, and even so many unrecorded lives as well, of people who, like, I don't know, people who wouldn't go to the doctor or didn't want to. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of unrecorded data as well, as accurate as, and of course, as a country, we didn't even try to be as good as other countries. Like other countries had like people who are doing the tracing, like of where you've been and helping you do all that, like, because who's gonna do that on their own? So of of course, governments were like setting up jobs and things like that. And so with the pandemic and how not just let alone deaths and health, but also like the loss of jobs, the loss of many industries, the loss of many establishments, historic ones even. Um, so the government just didn't have our back, like other countries did. So yeah.
Um, I have some questions about the government at the end as well. So we can talk about that some more. Um, but do you remember what it was like for you during the stay-at-home orders in 2020? Do you have any stories from this time that you can tell?
Stay at home orders, yeah, it was, I think you were here. uh it was very interesting because our boss was very reluctant, as I'm sure many other business owners were. They're like, no, I'm not gonna do it till Trump himself comes in here and tells me that I gotta shut down. um and so sadly we were one of those cases, not as bad, but it took a lot of like kind of mini micro organizing amongst ourselves to be like, hey, we got to tell our boss that this is it, we don't feel safe anymore, we got things. And then not just that, but then the marches were starting to heat up as well, and we're in downtown Austin, so um, things just weren't very, it didn't make sense to try to act like nothing changed, especially as an art museum. Like, we're not an essential service, as much as I love and respect and support the arts. And so it felt strange to have to be like waking up and getting ready and going to work and kind of risking yours and other people's lives just to keep what, like fulfilling uh, stipulations for money and stuff that we get. And so wait, what was the question?
What it was like for you during stay at home?
Okay. So finally, when our boss is like, all right, we can stay at home or work from home. Uh, and I think even then we weren't really like working. It was like, okay, let's just go home and see how things develop. It's probably gonna be over in a month again. Like, that's how we kept thinking all 2020. Like, all right, we'll go, since it's real bad right now, we'll go home, and in a month it'll be over too, and we'll be back. But all right, let's go home. And so I only worked from home for 3 months, and I know that's still more than many other people can say, but we worked from home for 3 months, and it was strange. It was strange in a lot of senses, psychologically, um, like spiritually, physically. Yeah, so it's like, once we're so used to like the hustle, the grind, and even its schedule, that we never really stop to think about how other things might work better for us, including economic systems, work systems, sleep systems, relationship systems, living systems. We never have time to stop and think about different ways that we can try things and maybe they work better. And we think that it just has to be this one that everyone's doing, which is like the Industrial Revolution set of 9 to 5. And even then, like, it used to be worse, but thanks to a lot of union efforts and historic things, it's now 8-hour work days, 40-hour work weeks, weekends. But when I was a teacher, actually, and I know it's a little tangent, but when I was a teacher, I remember my main 2 months off, which were June and July. I would spend June just chilling at home, like making stuff, and then I'd spend July traveling, 2 weeks somewhere, usually with family, and then 2 weeks with a friend that lives abroad or something, like in LA or New York. No, I never went to New York. I need to go though. But like 2 weeks in El Paso or 2 weeks in Chihuahua, and then 2 weeks in LA 1 year, 2 weeks in, where else did I go? I don't remember. But anyway, but June, I would play with my circadian rhythms, and I would do what felt natural. So if I don't have to go to work and I'm still getting paid, and I can literally be like chilling and doing anything, which was the closest little sample preview that I got pre-pandemic to what was to come in the pandemic. What I would do was, after a while, like I would stay up late, like I would still even during regular work days, like till 12, 1, and then wake up at 7, sleep in late on the weekends, catch up on the sleep, and then back to the same thing. And I think it's true what they say, that it's like a way of you kind of subconsciously resisting reclaiming your time, even if you're just laying a little extra hour on your phone, that the work they stole from you. So once I don't have to wake up, I would naturally be waking up like later and later and later. And sometimes it would feel bad. I would feel like less rested, even though I slept so much. I would feel like groggy and less rested and with headaches and like, so little by little, I started staying up till like 10 in the morning. And then I would go to sleep at 10 in the morning and then wake up around 5, 6 p.m. And then at that time, most of the people who aren't teachers would be getting off work 5 or 6 p.m. And so I'd wake up and I'd be like, damn, I feel good. The sun's still out, it's the summer. I'd text my friends, hey, well, we're going to grab a drink here. We just got off work, happy hour here. I'd be like, hell yeah, let's go. I'd hang out, maybe grab a drink with someone or go to someone's house or watch a movie, do something, and just hang out until like 9, 10, that now they got to go to sleep. And they're like, we got to go to sleep because work tomorrow. So 9, 10, they go to sleep. So I go home, and at about 11, then I'm like, all right, now I'm going to work and now I'm going to do my stuff. And so I would like paint or make music or read or like catch up on things. And so 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at about 9 in the morning, I'm like, all right, that's already like 11 hours, 10 hours of me doing work on my own leisure, whatever I want. I would start be like, okay, I'm sleepy. And then I'd go to sleep at 10 and then again, start over, wake up at 5, 6. So I'd be asleep like during the early mornings, hours of the day that, everyone else is at work. And then I'd wake up when people get off work, start working on my own stuff when people go to sleep. And so I did that for like the month of June, like 2 years. And it was so great for me. It was like super productive. I would do some of my like the most progress that I did on paintings was in those 2 months. And so that started happening again in the pandemic because I was already familiar with that. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to do that again because, and yeah, that's when I'd be working on emails. Luckily, Google has like the schedule send. So I could schedule send them at like 8 in the morning. And then I'd be like doing all this crazy work at night. And then, but the difference is that now I couldn't meet up with friends at 5 or 6, but around that time I had a roommate, and around that time me and my roommate would be like we watch so many series, so like we would watch series, just binge stuff, movies, series, make food. So it's cool. It felt like a little retreat, like a little 3-month retreat. And although it was weird because we couldn't really leave, it felt like, I don't know, I mean, like this is a nerdy reference, but in Dragon Ball Z there's like a time capsule where they go to train and they're like training for like months, but in real time it's like a day, but they've been in there for like months and they come out like super strong because they've been training. So it felt like that. It felt like we were in a little time capsule and the world was kind of frozen for those 3 months. And then once we had to come back to work, more people, I saw that more people were doing that too. But I think the first 3 months were like the ones where streets were dead everywhere. Like every job, any job, no matter what, was basically like on hold for the first 3 months of like March, April, May. And then I think in June, more people were like, okay, well, I'm not dead and my boss needs me, so I'm gonna go in and risk it. And so we started doing more of the like super precautions back then, even like spraying your hands to grab the gas pump and after. And so yeah, was that the question?
Yes. Awesome. Over the last couple of years, what news media, social media, or other sources do you rely on to keep you informed about COVID-19, and why do you prefer these news sources?
Over the last few months?
Um, like beginning pandemic and then till now.
What news sources did I rely on?
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of people knock on social media, but I think social media, um, yeah, it's a corporation. Yeah, it's privatized. Yeah, but it's the one place where I feel like we can all talk and be connected. And I love that. Like if someone creates a free and open source alternative that's just as fluid and functions just as great and everyone can be on it, um, then yeah, I'll gladly switch to that. Uh, but I think social media is just, I've learned so much on it. And I know it's not like I'm not saying that I'm infinitely smarter now as long as I stay on social media, because there's also QAnon stuff. So other people on the other side could be saying the exact same thing and believe it just as much as I am. Uh, but I think, yeah, social media was the biggest. Um, and yeah, certain news sources. I mean, I could say The Guardian is probably one of my like more trusted ones. But
Mhm.
aside from that, not even speaking about like news outlets, but more so I've been really enjoying like personal pundit, like news based things, like more independent journalist, which thanks to social media again, it's given a lot of platforms to a lot of people. Some deserve it, some don't, we got but even then, like free speech, right? But you get Alex Jones like people, Joe Rogans who try to be like nuanced. But I also, there was a lot of people on the left, pundits, who I was like, nah, I like this guy, I trust him, he's smart. Two of them were Chris Hedges, who was a journalist for the New York Times, and he covered like the war on Iraq, and he kind of exposed it, and he got fired for it, and then he started teaching in prisons, and he's great. He has like 14 books. Real awesome guy. I wish I could like just be like a mouthpiece for him. And Richard Wolff, who's like a Marxist economist, also has a YouTube channel, and they're like older men, but they're like hardcore. They're like um super smart critics of capitalism. And so of course they were like giving me like not so much news as like what's the rate of infections now, but more so like, hey, this shouldn't be happening like this, like because of capitalism we weren't prepared for it, because of capitalism we're not going to solve it, because of capitalism like more people are going to die. If capitalism was such a like healthy system, then it would have made sure that we would have had test ready ventilators stored even in like warehouses for decades, centuries if you want, but ready to be used for things like this. And because capitalism is all profit driven, doing that doesn't create profits for anyone, like having warehouses stored with test and mask and sanitizer and things that if it happened again we'd be ready for this time. No one's going to do it because there's no profit in that. There's no like profit in holding emergency ventilators and things to distribute. So yeah, I liked learning about a lot of that. And um, because through social media, YouTube primarily.
Can you share with me what you understand about COVID as an infect? Actually, one second. My cat opens the door, so they'll like edit this out, but let me just close the door again so it doesn't affect our sound.
Yeah.
Very smart of them, but very annoying that they can do that. Okay, sorry, I'll ask the next question. Can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease and how you feel it's impacted society? I think you kind of talked about that a little bit. Um, you have talked about it. There's been a lot of what you've said, but likewise, can you share with me what you don't understand about COVID and what you wish you knew more about, could know more about?
Yeah, so I think now in hindsight, it's again like I even think about my cousins, like they're like my first cousins, whose mom died, my aunt, my mom's sister.
Mm.
I think about them a lot because I'm like, I wonder what they think when they see like people still debating or like, it's not real, or I'm not wearing a mask, or this.
Mm.
Or even when I was like, I'm not gonna wear a mask anymore. Like recently, I'm like, no. Um, it's I think about them because it's like, yeah, it took a lot of people's loved ones, and but it's something so small. I even have a close friend who we have in El Paso, and we were in this big group chat of all these El Paso friends, and he got COVID, and then he recovered, and then like a week later, half of his like nervous system like shut down, and it was like a complication, a weird rare complication because of COVID, and like he couldn't walk for like 3 months. It was like super sad, super intense, and he was like super healthy. He'd be always go to the gym, like buff and healthy eating all the time. And I just thought it was like ironic, that something so tiny can take down even like the strongest man. Um, and young too. Like it wasn't, of course, the most vulnerable were the highest um targeted demographic, or not targeted, but the highest casualties. But that doesn't mean that many other young people also like suffered and died. And as they say, like even my mom, who survived, luckily, like she was on the ventilator, and I wasn't able to be there because it was in Chihuahua during all this
Mm.
stuff. And so my dad was there, but he shared with me today that like he was ready. He kind of felt like my mom wasn't gonna make it, and it's crazy because she's still here. And I think it's something genetic too, because my dad didn't get it, and they were in the same household, and then she got it, my mom got it real bad, and then in my aunt's household, all of the four of them got it, and they were all like sick together, and then they all got better. But then my aunt was like looking bad, and they were like, we should they tested her like oxygen, and they were like, oh, it's low. And then someone that was a doctor was like, no, it's not that low, wait till it gets lower and then take her. And they waited, and when they took her, it was too late, like she died. So she died. And then my other aunt, the other sister, there's three of them, their whole same thing, the whole household got it. And then my aunt had to go to the hospital too, and they said that her lungs got all crazy. So I think it's like there's something genetic, like what a weird thing that the three sisters, the three like women from that bloodline got it like super bad, like super super bad, and everyone else didn't in their family. Like, yeah, it could be like just a coincidence, but I think something in like something genetically will also kind of determines like
Mm.
how hard it's going to hit you, no matter how healthy you are. And yeah, my mom and my aunt's lungs, the ones who survived, they're like permanently like worse now, like I think like 50% less capacity or something, or less function. It like really turned it, they said that it turned it into like a chicharron, like a I don't know how you say it in English, pork rinds, that they look like pork rinds now. And so I'm like, damn, that's crazy that something so small can do things like that to you. I mean, we always known this biology and diseases and viruses, but to be seeing it happen, it's just wild.
Mm.
um what was the question?
What you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease and how you feel it's impacted society. But I feel like that answered it.
Yeah, in the beginning, lastly, just in the beginning, we thought it was super, super like surfaces and everything. But now I feel like, okay, it's gonna be like a cold. Like if someone is sick with it and I'm around them, and I might drink from their drink, or they cough and sneeze in my face, I'm probably gonna get it. Or kiss them or whatever, I'm probably gonna get it in like straight direct contact. But it's way less scary and intense than when it first came out, and they were like, "Don't even look at people," because yeah. So
Um, so you kind of talked about this already, but do you feel like your family has the same beliefs as you about COVID-19, or are there some members who take it more seriously or less seriously?
Definitely some that take it more and some that take it less. I feel like my dad was always like more, uh, toxic machismo of like, no, like, well, um, it's sad. I don't know if he still feels this way, but even after it happened to my mom and after he had to deal with it himself and everything, he was like, no, like it's gonna, that's how like kind of like survival of the fittest, kind of like, well, only the people who are healthy, like this is life, this is how life is, and there's gonna be deaths, and yeah, it's sad. But nah, my mom, like, she'll still wear mask if she goes to like um crowded places,
Mm,
because yeah, it might hit her harder. um so yeah, I feel like that echoes throughout the family. Like,
mm,
I don't know exactly who's more or less serious about it, but I think it'd probably be
mm.
like a gamble, 50-50 split on it.
This next part asks you to share any stories about COVID-19 vaccines, any vaccination related stories you may wish to tell. Did you get a vaccine and any follow-up booster shots?
I got the vaccine, the first one, the second one. I never got a booster. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think in the beginning it was more so like they were saying like that there was a shortage of them. So I was like, okay, well, I'll let people who really need them and want them get them first. But also, and also, I'm not gonna lie, like I was like, well, since the first shots they were offering like $100 or like free food or this and that, I was like, I'm gonna wait till a good offer comes up and then I'll get the booster. And it never did. So I just never really like got around to doing it. But
Uh,
uh
can you
yeah.
tell me a little bit about what it was like? Was it easy or difficult for you in terms of scheduling, wait time, that kind of thing?
It was difficult because we couldn't find them anywhere at first. Like, we keep refreshing the HEB websites. I remember my coworkers here, like, we'd be trying hard. And when we would get them, it was like, oh, congratulations, like a celebration thing. So it was difficult. And I think for someone who might not have people to help them, like we were working as a community here together to help each other get them, and our parents and stuff. For someone who might not have that or might not be tech literate, yeah, it's way difficult. And again, like, we didn't have systems in place to just kind of make it easy and accessible for all. Now there's like stations everywhere, and yeah, now they're mailing you even like test kits, but it's like late. We've already lost almost 1 million people. So um yeah.
Can you share a memory from the place where you were vaccinated or boosted?
A memory of what?
Of the place where you were vaccinated or boosted or
It
vaccinated?
was actually at UT, and it was pretty good. It was pretty efficient. Yeah, it was cool. And I lost my card, but they didn't care. They still, I guess I was still on the record. So they it was easy.
These next set of questions are going to ask you about how COVID-19 has impacted you with respect to your family, your work with the museum, as well as a practicing artist, and about your involvement in advocacy. So first, let's talk about what the pandemic has been like for your family. Um, you've also kind of touched on these, so however much you want to talk about them, we can, and there's a lot of other questions here too. So you lived in Austin for several years, but you're originally from El Paso, as we've established, and you have family that lives in Arizona. How much did you see your mom, dad, and older brother before COVID? And how did COVID-19 change? How did it affect your family life and ability to interact with your parents and brother? I know you mentioned that your mom was in Chihuahua when she got sick, and so you weren't able to see her. But I guess maybe just the difference between before and during.
Yeah, so um before, I used to see them, I mean, not as often, I guess, because it's hard to go back to El Paso. It's like an 8-hour drive and getting time off work, and it's like one day to even drive there, one day to come back. So it has to be like a real important reason. And so before, I would hardly go, and during the pandemic even less. And so, but my brother did get married in November 2020, and they just didn't want to like reschedule. They were like, nah, well, we're just gonna do it. Whoever wants to come, come. And they did do a lot of extra precautions and measures to keep things like safe. But and so that was, I saw my brother there. It was in Arizona, but my mom couldn't make it because that's when she was, I think, first starting to get sick. So we didn't know how bad it was gonna get. But yeah, she was first starting to get sick, and so she's like, "No, I'm not gonna go." And we're like, "Okay." And so of course, like she didn't want to miss it, but she had to. And and then after that, I didn't see them again. I don't know where did I spend Christmas, but yeah, usually I see them like once a year, Christmas, and when I was teaching in the summers, but that's been 3 years ago. Um, and so now though they moved here, and it's been nice because now I see them like at least 3 days out of the week. So it's been a lot nicer to, yeah, like Saturdays I'll go over and I'll work on like my car with my dad, or a car. And then Sundays I won't be there. Mondays I'll be there because um I'll like do laundry there or whatever. So it's nice. And then my mom, I'm like teaching her how to paint now too. So it's like more things that I wouldn't be able to do if they weren't living here. And it's nice. I feel like the pandemic kind of shifted that too, especially seeing like my aunt die, and how like, yeah, life is fleeting, and now is all you have, and surround yourself with people you want to spend your immediate reality with. So
When did they move to Austin?
they've been slowly moving this year. Well, and last year. So like summer of last year, about June, July of last year, they started slowly like bringing stuff. So in the beginning, they'd be here like 2 weeks a month, and now because my dad is retired, but he'll still go work in El Paso for 2 weeks. But my mom retired in like August, and then she came, and she was going back with my dad, but now she's like trying to be more rooted, and yeah, and she's like trying to renew my grandma's green card and do more things that like, she left Chihuahua to come over here, and my dad is slowly trying to leave El Paso to come over here, but it's like their only source of income, his retirement and that extra money, which isn't really, it's like barely enough. And um and I wish I had like, a money making job where I could be like, y'all don't have to work, just chill. But sad reality.
Mhm. So you've talked a little bit about how COVID-19 impacted the lives of your parents. How about your older brother, aside from, I guess, in addition to uh, his wedding,
Yeah,
which was
so
definitely I think a problem a lot of people had too.
yeah, they definitely, I think it was supposed to be earlier, but then they moved it earlier in the year. I think it was gonna be like a summer wedding or a spring wedding or something, but then they moved it because they thought, they were like, well, by November it should be down again, because it was supposed to be in the beginning, and then it wasn't. So they were like, oh, well, we can't move it again, we're just gonna have it. um and so his wife is a air hostess,
Mhm.
like the one, what's the title?
A flight attendant.
Flight attendant. She's a flight attendant, and for Southwest, and of course that changed a lot. um they were still flying, but it was like different, and they had to do like other work from home things, and my brother was working from home, so he started, yeah, he's still working from home, I think, today. And I think he's changed jobs like twice maybe. So he's a banker, an underwriter. So he's still working from home. I think he's still going to work from home, I don't know. But he seems like he likes it. He seems like he's enjoyed the change. They're having a baby now. So, and when my niece because his niece was from another baby mama. She's in El Paso and she's 10, but she spends like summers there and other times there. So when she goes, it's nicer because he can kind of be more active or present. Even though he still has to be working, he can like run to the kitchen and cook something up or something real quick. So I think it's been good overall. He got one of those lucky work from home jobs. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so you mentioned, we've talked about how some of your older family members contracted COVID, and that your aunt passed. What happened and like what was that like?
It was very sudden, and I didn't expect it, and I'm sure not even they, like her immediate family, didn't expect it either. But just got COVID, and I remember one week my mom calls me, and I'm just catching up with her. You know, she's over there in Chihuahua. My dad's in El Paso. I'm out here, and they're like, "Yeah, I know," and I'm like, "Well, how's everyone doing?" She's like, "No, well, your aunt and the whole family has COVID, and they're all sick at home." Haha. Like it's like a ha, they're just all sick at home, just kind of dealing with it. Oh, okay, cool. And then like a week later, they call me, my dad, and he's like late at night. And so I knew I didn't know it was gonna be about that, but I was like, damn, he's calling me late at night and I'm gonna answer. And I answer, and then yeah, I'm just like, he's like, bad, we got really bad news. And I was like, oh no. He's like, your aunt died. And I was like, dang. I was like, no, like I couldn't believe it. I was like, no, like from that, like from COVID, bro. Like, because it seemed like everyone was getting better, like another family got it, and like their siblings, a brother and their family, and they all got better. And then like my mom had got it and gotten better already.
Mhm.
And then my aunt had gotten two, and this was the third aunt. And so everyone had gotten better. That's why I was like, no, like, what, really? They're like, yeah. So super sad. I feel like it definitely split the family apart. My cousin, who's like a year or two younger than me, and she's the oldest. I feel like, and she only has her little brother who's like 5 years younger, so it's probably like 26. They both kind of stopped talking to the family, and they both like started building this weird resentment for my grandma, like because my grandma used to like hit them as kids, and so they were just like now being all like, fuck everyone, like all the family, like y'all aren't here for us, and y'all aren't like helping us. And but granted, like financially, all three of them have very great jobs and they make great money, like probably the most out of all the cousins. And so I don't really think it came from that, but I think it came from like being there. But it was like, how, it's hard. And again, why I believe like keep your family close, so that way we can, anything happens, we're there. Like keep them in the same vicinity, community if possible. But yeah, it was hard. I still feel bad for my mom. That aunt was like the life of the party, like the funny one, the witty one, quick on her toes, like just always making everyone crack up. She was she was great, and she'll be missed forever, of course.
I'm sorry, that's super sad. Um, in the same vein of family, how did COVID-19 affect the lives of your chosen family? So like your friends in Austin? Um, yeah, we can start there.
Friends, oof, most of them are teachers, so I feel like the education system, like the medical system, the healthcare system, suffered a lot, and the pandemic spotlighted and exposed a lot of the issues, the faults, the flaws in both of those systems, public education and public healthcare, which are like the things we fight for the most. And yeah, the teachers and the healthcare workers are the ones who suffer the most, resigned the most. Suicides today, I think, have increased like drastically in healthcare workers. And it's because of that, because they're getting paid pretty bad wages, you know, not the worst, but for the work they're doing and the responsibilities of like basically taking care of our youth so that the cogs can keep spinning and their parents can keep working. And that's the treatment we give them, or that's the compensation. And like they were adding extra work to them and trying to make the kids become work from home workers as well, like for free, when like some parents could not be working from home. So of course a lot of absences, a lot of lack of engagement started happening in the education system, and therefore discouragement as a professional to a lot of my friends and teachers, because it's like in the beginning we didn't really have this like social etiquette and norms that we have on real life, on virtual life. They were like be talking to screens that were off, or and so it's like, imagine giving a lesson to like 20 screens that are off. So yeah, and they kept putting the same amount of work, if not more, definitely more, to like transferring and doing things creatively now from home. So I think it impacted a lot of I think it definitely squeezed a lot of the passion out of a lot of them. And now it's interesting to see some that I thought would retire as teachers are like thinking about quitting, and changing careers, myself included, even though I didn't have the exact same experience as them. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Did most of your friends choose to get vaccinated? And how did their decisions to get vaccinated or not affect your interpersonal relationships in Austin?
I think they did, most of them, all of them, I want to say. I don't know of any that didn't, but at the same time, with the immediate circle, like we would talk about it, but beyond, it wasn't. No, it was actually. I remember even the first little gatherings that started happening in 2020 or 2021, early 2021, were like, yeah, we're gonna have like a baby shower, but everyone has to be vaccinated, and things like that. Like people were starting to have these requirements and things, which then then I was like, yeah, for sure. Today, I feel like people, it's hard to keep track of that. Like you see people out in the bars and the clubs and parties and the cars and the concerts, and like who's really keeping track of it now? And it becomes again not a personal problem, but a systemic one. Like we shouldn't be mad at the concert goers, at the party goers, the festival goers, the anti-maskers. We should be mad that the system didn't act quicker and have better plans in place so that we wouldn't have to be fighting each other on and putting that weight on each other, the responsibility on each other. Um, I think.
Okay, so this is like between you and me because this will be cut out probably. So okay, so I have like a section. This next section is like about work with the museum and then as an artist and then like the activism. That's all kind of in one. And it's like 15 questions.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe 16. And then the final questions are a set of like 6, just asking about how you felt about the responses for the government, from the government. So since you've already talked about that, I guess you can just kind of fill in any holes that you feel like you haven't addressed yet. Ditto for these next ones. But how are you doing? How are you feeling? Do you need a bathroom break?
I think I'm good right now.
Okay. Then I'll continue like my transitional statement and I'll start asking you these questions. And then I'll check in with you at the beginning of the next one. Or if you like are like, hey, I need to like run to the bathroom or whatever, just let me know.
Yeah.
Okay. So this next set of questions, Jose, will pertain to how COVID-19 affected your work as an education associate at Mexic-Arte Museum in Austin, Texas. Is that your title? Education associate?
Education associate? Yeah.
So for okay, sorry. Hopefully that gets cut out too. Because my first question is like about your background, but you talked about that already, so I don't need to ask about it. So what were your responsibilities prior to the pandemic, and what are the different kinds of groups that you work with through the museum?
What were my responsibilities
Hmm.
before the pandemic
Hmm.
and after?
I'm just asking about before right now.
Before, so responsibilities were basically to schedule and coordinate, basically to run one of our outreach programs called Screen It, which is like 14, 15 years old. And in short, I hire, train, schedule, coordinate, maintain relations with school teachers so that we can send our own teachers that are typically professional screen printers and practicing artists to teach kids how to do a stencil method, print design on t-shirts that we provide, color separation, at least two colors. And they learn basically screen printing
Mhm.
as a tool, as a trade that can aid any cause, any business, any mass production message statement that they want to make. So it'd be mainly that, and that required a lot of data intake and entry with the city of Austin, Austin Public Health, Department of Family Protective Services. And it's great, but the program itself is great. But all the back end stuff that I had to do was not. Um, so I am glad that the pandemic changed and made a lot of those things less like more streamlined and easier to submit. Um, Also tours here at the museum, I would help my other education associate partner, who they would be more in charge of in-house education systems like that or programs. But sometimes they would need help, like a group above 25 students, we'd have to split up between two. And that was fun. I enjoy lecturing, teaching, talking. So I like the tours a lot. Um, and sometimes we'd have activities on Sundays once a month because Sundays are free. So once a month we'd have like a family day, which would be an activity, a hands-on activity for families here in the museum that's related to an art medium shown in the exhibit or an artist that's being exhibited as well. Uh, and yeah, that's it.
And then what are the groups that you work with? Because ScreenIt has like a specific demographic that it's trying to target, right?
Yeah, so Screen It is directed by the city and by data that is gathered by the city and I guess also by the state based on juvenile delinquency and the number one juvenile delinquency and teen pregnancy zip codes. So the number one zip code in Austin is the 78744, which is Dove Springs, which is southeast Austin, kind of near like the Slaughter William Cannon in between area. And of course it's a historically BIPOC uh, region. First it was Black community, and then it started becoming more Latino community, and now it's like the last frontier of gentrification in Austin. So it's always been facing challenges, uh, and yeah, so we try to work with fifth grade to high school because kindergartners aren't really committing crimes or getting pregnant. So we work mainly with fifth through 12th grade, and yeah, and ideally they want us to work after school hours because the peak juvenile delinquency hours are from 4 to 8, I think, like when kids whose parents work long hours, they're not at school anymore, so they have more free time to be in the streets and doing whatever they want, um, unsupervised. And so yeah, but we mainly work with them during the school time and in the summers as well.
Um, what is your favorite part of the work that you do with the museum, and what kinds of challenges did you face, or what kind of challenges did you face pre-pandemic?
What was the first part?
What's your favorite part and what kind of challenges did you face pre-pandemic?
My favorite part working with the museum
Mhm. Of the work that you do, yeah.
of the work that I do is connecting people, and I think giving opportunities to professionals, creatives, artists, to feel that rewarding what it is to be a teacher. That's super rewarding, and why every teacher becomes a teacher and stays a teacher is because that passion, those little like moments, connections, establishing a rapport with kids and seeing them, just getting used to them, even being with a group for like 1 week. um, you already start to like get close with certain kids, and you start knowing which ones are more talkative or which ones are harder to like reach, and you try to change your like approach with those. And so that experience is so rewarding, and I think so essential to identity in general. I don't care who you are, what profession you're from. I think everyone needs exposure or a chance to transfer knowledge and feel like feel expertise that you can transfer. And I think it's very tribal, very like innate for us as humans to feel a reward in that, whether they're your kids or not. Um, and so that's my favorite part, is like seeing artists who would never have another excuse or reason to be in the schools, teaching their passion, their skills, their expertise, their trade, um, and seeing them like, thank you. Like they don't say thank you, but no, they do. Some of them have, a lot of them have. But that's not why I do it. And that's not what I like, is getting the thank you. I just like knowing and even being there with them and seeing them like, bond with kids and change lives, I guess.
Um, what kind of challenges did you have with the work that you do pre-pandemic?
Challenges, well, overwork being overworked, burning out, uh not so much support, less empathy from higher ups, because the pandemic made everyone be like, oh well, it's the pandemic, so it's okay if you're late a month. But before that, it was like I was stressed. I was like having my first anxiety attacks and everything, like at work, at this job more so than in school. um but even in school it was easier for me. Like in school it was super stressful, but I was better at taking care of myself. Like I'd go home, take baths, relax, and just like when I'd be super stressed, and it was so great. Like meditate, whatever, it was just so good. But for some reason here it was less. I felt like more was on the line here, because and sometimes I think about that. Sometimes I'm like, man, I want a job that is more mindless. I want to be like customer service, work from home job, because I'm tired of being asleep at night and being like, looking at my calendar, being like, do I have something tomorrow? Like, dude, did I tell that teacher that we're coming in? Did I order the supplies? Did I tell the artist that what classroom, what school, what time? And I that becomes stressful. So that's those are always challenges, pandemic or not, but they were heightened back then. I feel like back then the whole world was like on this like super cracked out like level of work, like Wolf of Wall Street style, that it really, like the pandemic was, I guess the silver lining was that it really did slow everyone down to be like, like that no one's gonna die if you don't turn that in. And that kind of became like a mantra for me. Like if I don't do this, I want to stress hard and stay extra late to finish this article for this newsletter that's due, and my boss already. But you know what? No one's gonna die if they don't get their newsletter the day that my boss wants to send it out. So yeah.
Sorry, 1 second again. I can hear my mom trying to find my little puppy and there's like a hole in the fence. I'm like,
I can't hear it.
I know. I'm glad you can't because that means it's not recording. But sorry, give me just 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, they didn't lose her. I'm supposed to go on a study abroad trip this summer, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. Y'all are gonna lose my freaking dog, cause she's like this big. She's like really small.
Dang.
I know. It's a madhouse in here. Okay,
Are
sorry.
you 100% sure they're gonna stay small?
Um, one of them is growing pretty big already. They're like Chihuahuas. We think they might be Chihuahua Dachshunds because they're like brindle. They're like striped. But I hope they do. I think the little one will at least be pretty small. She looks a little bit more like a Chihuahua, and the other one, he's like twice her size, even though they're siblings. But anyway, sorry about that. Um, what did I just ask you? Okay, so how did your responsibilities change after the pandemic, and what challenges did you face in continuing your work when lockdown went into effect?
So after the pandemic, the biggest challenges were to continue servicing kids. So like how, just like teachers, like we relied so heavily on these places of gathering for knowledge, which were schools. Like how how do we support and aid the educators on this mission, especially the art ones? Well, we started doing virtual lessons, which was pretty cool because it pushed us creatively to do like cool videos and um, like step up all our gear and stuff in that sense to, and it was fun. Like I liked that. Like my graphic design side was very like challenged and pleased with that. Uh, while my art teacher side was also like challenged on how do we make lessons that can be done with things at home. What about kids that have no internet? What about kids that have no money to go to the store and buy these things? So we have to think of more real challenges that I think we weren't thinking about before, because we do leave a lot of the heavy lifting to the institutions, the public schools, to kind of provide the materials, provide the supplies, the food, the shelter. And so we started creating art kits and we started delivering them ourselves. So that was very challenging, very exhausting, and taking away from a lot of other things that we had to be doing as well. Still had to be doing the data entry and all that. So it's like, so luckily we got partnerships with people like Junior League of Austin, and they were like, we want to volunteer and help. How can we get some hours in with y'all? And we're like, here's all these supplies, put them in bags and put names on them and deliver them. Here's their addresses. We grouped them by regions. So here you go. So we made it work. It took a few tries, a few like hard tries, but we figured it out, and hopefully it was cool, and hopefully kids got to still do stuff. We never got to really see or come back around for follow-up conclusion of the programs, but yeah, it was that was the challenging part. Like, how can we say that we are servicing the kids, but at the same time, flip side, it made getting our numbers easier, because whether the kids got it or not, we left it on the door. Whether they made the project or not, we could count it as a service. And it's sad that that program requires like quantification like that, numbers, otherwise it doesn't count. Because when we are in the schools, it's like the numbers, the kids don't count if they don't turn in this crazy like extensive and intrusive form that enrolls them into the system. And so if they don't turn it in, even though they probably might have done the best artwork and design and were the best student, they don't count for us, and therefore like our numbers are lower. So that's one program. Luckily, we have this new program that is also funded by Austin Public Health, but the people running it are less like, show us what you did with every single kid and every single dollar you spent and every. So yeah, there was challenges, but it was also nicer because we were hitting our numbers. We recorded live tours. No, not live tours. We recorded tours and made like movies of the tours too, which was cool because we weren't doing that before. And now that stayed as a practice that we're continuing post-pandemic. We started doing interviews with artists once a month, because we have a program called Changarrito, which used to be a physical program in which artists would be picked by the curator and the director, and they'd have a long list, and each month there's a little like cart on wheels that we have that's based off the concept of a changarrito, which is like the word of from, I think it's like a Nahuatl word from the Aztecs, the Mexicas, that was like a setup, like a little shop setup, like a blanket on the ground with things that I'm selling you, from way back in the day. And so it's still used today in Mexico. And you can call like your taco stand is a changarro, your little fruit and ice cream store in a physical location, even though it's established like concrete location, it could still be like, oh, like I'm gonna go to the bathroom, take care of the changarro. And so changarrito is like the small version that Sylvia came up with, or Sylvia and someone in Mexico, I think. Uh, and so before, it was the artist would come every weekend for a month and have like small things to sell for people here who are coming in the museum, at the front of the museum, and they can talk about their art. It could be small paintings worth $1,000 if you want, or a small prints for $20, $30, or a mix of the two. It doesn't matter, there's no limit. The whole point was for the artist to bring things small enough to fit on the cart and be able to showcase their work, and yeah, try to make some sales and be known. But our marketing associate, Mario Villanueva, now works for the Contemporary, he kind of came up with the idea of like, well, since we can't do it anymore, what if we did like an Instagram takeover, and they can post whatever they want from home and what they're working on, and they can have access to all our followers, which I think was like 10 or 11K at the time. And then at the end of the month, we do like a live interview with them, and audience can join in. And so it was a great idea. It worked super well. Uh, and we're still doing that today. So that was another challenge. That's not so much in my field, but how I saw my coworkers, my team deal with their own challenges and their own programming, and how they resolved it. And I think meetings were important too, to kind of meet together and be like, oh, you should do this, or oh yeah, that'd be cool, we should try that too. So yeah, there were challenges. We resolved them. Some solutions stuck, became permanent. Some solutions were just temporary fixes for the pandemic.
In your own work with Screen It as well?
In my own work with Screen It as well. Yeah. Well, no, not so much. Now Screen It is kind of just back to normal, and we don't really have online. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the lessons that we had for online, we're not really using them anymore. But they're still on YouTube. Like they're still accessible and on the website for maybe teachers who are not in Austin, or educators around the world who might find them and be like, oh, I'm gonna do that. So I guess those fixes did stick too, but we're not using them anymore. But they're still there for people to access. Yeah.
So from my personal experience working at Mexic-Arte Museum, I know it usually has a small team. What has the pandemic been like for your coworkers kind of as a team?
I think it's been easier. There's pros and cons to being a small team. Pros are challenges during the pandemic for being a small team.
Yeah, what was the pandemic? Yeah.
I should have the questions right here. So I think because it was a small team, again, it was easier to talk and share ideas amongst each other, when I feel like I would hear about other people who are working for like Indeed and all these big companies that are like, you don't get as a direct line with other departments, let alone with your boss. So I think being a smaller team has its uses like that, but it's also, the cons would be that there's not enough of us. So like we only have one development person, one marketing person, and one curator. And so when other museums have like a curator for just the Latin American collection, a curator for just this, assistant curator to the Latin curator, assistant marketing, assistant development. So we don't have that. So if one person was like, I'm out of here, or die for whatever reason, or just disappear, we wouldn't know how to like tell the next person, I don't know what they did, I don't know what they were working on. And so that's a flaw, but I think we're slowly growing, and I hope our director sees that and is slowly like fixing that, addressing that.
Um, can you talk a little bit about how COVID-19 affected the lives of the student populations you work with? Maybe some anecdotes. I know you've talked about it a little bit, but is there anything you want to say more specifically
Say that again. I'm sorry.
about about how the pandemic affected the lives of the student populations that you work with?
Yeah. So again, like not every family household had childcare or funds for childcare or work from home abilities. And so I definitely noticed teachers, mainly because I'm in a lot of education circles because of my friends and most of my, so even the network that I do at my job, I kind of build friendships with the classroom teachers as well too, outside of my friend group. Most of them will share, yeah, that the once kids were going back to school, a lot of them didn't come back. So a lot of them kind of like just straight up lost interest, or maybe start working, the high schoolers, to help out. And so they're not going to go to school. And so I think it affected households like that. Like a lot of kids had to help support the family, be it through childcare. If they're like elementary, middle schoolers, some of them would be taking care of like babies and stuff, and high schoolers as well. But some of them would have to be working like 2 jobs and stuff to help out. And so yeah, it definitely affected. It was like it was an easier convincing for parents to be like, well, yeah, school sucks right now since y'all have to be sitting on a computer all day. Might as well go to work. So go to work, like you don't imagine a parent saying that during non-pandemic times, but during the pandemic, you're like, shit, we're struggling. You're just sitting in front of a computer listening to a teacher, and who knows if you're even learning. I see you're playing games anyway on the side. You have your screen off. Like, just go to work, get a job. So that was happening a lot. And what I noticed being at the museum, yeah, we didn't have as much tours as usual. Usually we had at least 2 to 8 tours a month, depending on the month, from random public schools. But I noticed that during the pandemic, we had less and less tours, probably like 1 or 2 tours a year. And those tours were from like little community hubs from like Bee Cave, West Austin, like pop-up schools that were like, oh, the community, we all are working from home, and like we're bringing our kids together because this mom works for Silicon Labs and this dad works, he's an army guy and he does PE for them, and this guy like, and so now this mom likes to do art, and so she wanted to bring them to the museum for y'all. And so it was cool to see like the privilege be able to experiment with different education systems. Like I said earlier, we don't have the time to question or try new systems because we don't have the time, and to see that other things could work better, including in education. And so it was cool and hopeful, optimistic to see that naturally, given the chance, given the opportunity, taking away the stress levels of having to work and all that, uh people will experiment with these education systems and stuff. But it's also sad that the non-privileged areas were doing other things, like, nah, we're making our kids work because we need to. So those are things I saw in the student population.
Um, okay, I think you answered most of the questions I had about the museum specifically, just throughout your different time talking about them. Um, so how long, okay, so you've talked about how long you've been an artist, and your medium's growing up. Okay, okay, perfect. What kind of mediums do you practice at this stage in your life? You talked about guitar, and painting, and how those were the ones that you worked on throughout your life. Are those still your favorites?
Yeah, so they're just easier because I know them best, but I wish I had time and money to try and experiment with other stuff. Like
Mhm.
I have been wanting to step away from painting since probably since I graduated. No, probably like 2015. I'm done with painting. These are my last paintings. Whatever's half done are my last paintings once I finish them. Because I want to get more into like sculptural things, like installations, kind of. Um, I'm really influenced by some Chicano and Mexican artists like that. And so I want to do more like that. I want to do more like less, less. And it's funny because we have a show right now about Chicano artists in Austin specifically. What was the Chicano art? What was the Chicano movement like in Austin while it was peaking nationally in the 60s through the 80s? And so it's spotlighting all the locals here. And it's interesting because I was hearing my boss, our founder director, who's also part of that era. She was giving a tour, and I was recording it so I can like study it and then give tours myself. Which I have my first one this Friday. Um, she was saying how like she said something very interesting that stuck with me, and it's funny because I heard someone else in the staff say like, I hate the art. Like the art is like all over the place. It's like cubist over here and then abstract over here and then realist over here and then photography over here. And so there's not like a unified theme of medium. And I was like, so it didn't sit well with me. But then I heard my boss say something without even having heard that. She was like, a lot of the artists during this era didn't have the privilege to experiment with like, oh, I'm gonna make art about like laying in the grass and the experience of like motherhood, or just like the experience of feeling the wind, like, or be abstract and about nothing, just color theory and shapes, like, and lines. Like, no, they felt like if they were learning a skill, a medium for art, it had to make a statement because there was so much going on back then, like so much oppression, so much injustice, so much, which still is happening today. But it's interesting to see that they felt like, well, if I'm abstract or like if this is non-figurative, you're not gonna be able to see the message I'm trying to make, like even back here, like these skeletons falling out of the Statue of Liberty, like if you make that abstract, there's no message anymore, like the message is gone. And so a lot of times the artists, they didn't have that privilege of like experimenting with sculptures that are just, I just want to play with the textures of marble and granite together and shapes. Like, no, that was a luxury. It would be almost frowned upon in the community back then that your art is not like making a statement for the community, La Raza, the Chicanos. And so I guess the question was in my mediums.
Oh, which ones are you practicing now?
Yeah,
You're
so
saying that they're
yeah,
different
sorry.
than the ones that you'd like to be practice or that
Yeah,
you'd like to.
sorry, I went on a tangent, but I feel that way right now. I feel like, you know what? I do have that privilege, and I feel like identity and themes, I mean, from the beginning, it was the reason I got into art, because I felt like I had so much deep things to say and everyone should hear it. And so concept art is always going to be a part of me. I can't get away from it. But I do want to become less like obvious, less interpretive, or more open, more interpretive, I guess. And so I do want to get into like more abstract things visually, sculptural things visually. And in my music, I'm getting almost similarly. Music, I'm treating it more as like, well, I guess the same as visual art, as like a study. Like every album that we're writing, and I'm lucky that my two bandmates trust me with like all this stuff, like the conceptual stuff, the all that side of it, because I don't know, I guess they respect and believe in my vision, and they're about it, and it becomes their vision too. And there's definitely a lot of room for them to insert their actual technical art into it as well. So music is great because by myself, I'd only be able to give you so much, but with collaboratively, I can give you way crazier things that by myself wouldn't be as fun or as exciting, even to me, as if I was from an outside perspective looking at what we're making. Like every artist, I think I try to make things that I would want to see and that I would want to hear, like that I'd want to be wowed by, like just like the artists that I was mentioning earlier, that I'm like, I've been seeing Chicano artists, sculptors, and Mexican ones that just blow my mind. Like I want to do that to myself, and I think that's always a goal. It's like, dang, like I did that, and it's cool. And even though it's weird, I know there's other weirdos that will like it because I've liked things that I've liked things that the artist was also not caring, and it's like I'm just doing it for me, and it's great. And I'm like, oh, it's so great. So I'm like, I hope someone else gets that feeling too, of like, dang, this is so great, in both the music and the art. Um, and so yeah, painting right now and music. And in music, we're exploring as many genres as possible with each album, with the spin of like psychedelia as an excuse to like this this like not dissect it, but like deconstruct it. uh so we say like this first album we're about to release is psychedelic reggaeton. So it's like we reflected on reggaeton a lot, and it's amazing movement and impact and history. But also we're like, okay, right now it's mainly about like dance and kind of sexual, which is great. Like there's plenty of artists that will keep doing that and are gonna do that. But what if we made it psychedelic and like more, like a little more trippy and progressive, and pushed it to a boundary that no other artist has yet, because no one would want to do that because everyone wants reggaeton to be for what it's for. But my easiest description of it is like it's reggaeton for introverts. So like you could play it at a club, it could work, you will dance, there has dancey parts, but it's more so to like listen to the lyrics and get deep about it, and like, wow, that's a weird little instrumental breakdown section that happened and came back. And so we're gonna do that with different genres. We're gonna do like a corrido, psychedelic corrido one next, and then like a Chicago footwork kind of DJ break beats as well. Like it's gonna be like a dual EP release. So yeah, it's just like studying things we like and then deconstructing them and building something that hasn't been done yet, but that we would like to hear from that genre. And then painting, same, and art, not even painting, just in art. I want to make sculptural things that haven't been done yet, but that I would want to see.
That sounds really cool. That sounds really awesome. I'm excited about that idea. So you had a show this week, right? Last week.
On
So
Thursday.
was that kind of the result of, I guess my next question was going to be, did you work on art during the pandemic? And was this like a result of that? I have a couple of questions and I'll kind of just let you approach it however you want. But the questions I had were, did you work on art during the pandemic and quarantine? What was your favorite thing that you made? And how did these events change the way you think about your art practices and how you approach them? And I guess throwing in there, um, it, do you kind of see this show that you did and this album that y'all are working on as kind of a result of, like, I guess that era?
Yeah. So we had been working on it before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic we stopped for like the 3 months again. But even then we found a way to still meet and like play stuff and hear it, and like, and more so like logistically advance it. Not as much, but um it was cool. And then we started meeting in person like as soon as we were I was back at work. So it was like, yeah, 3 months later. So yeah, we did work on it a lot during the pandemic. And we even went to record, it's a 17 track album, and last summer we went to El Paso to mix and master all the 17 tracks that we already had like raw recordings of, and mixes them. And we were there for 3 weeks, for every day from like 8 to honestly like almost like 15 18-hour days working on it, on just like not even writing, well, a few little parts, but mainly mixing, mastering, and re-recording certain things. And it was cool. Like we spent collective money on it and everything. And then I guess this is a good one for how it impacted the pandemic impacted people around us. Our engineer, he's like a lifelong friend, and he's super skilled, super talented. Um, and he's older. He's like in his mid 40s. And and so we finished recording, and we were supposed to have the album like by September, but he, for X or Y reason, he wasn't giving it to us, and we started getting all upset, and we started getting like all unmotivated and disheartened, because most of the album we wrote it like in apartments, not in jam spaces. We wrote it like, okay, here's a beat that my drummer made digitally, not on a real drum. And now I would make a guitar to it. All right, let me hook up the guitar now. Okay, now the guitar's playing. Hey, bass, like write something to it. Okay, another guitar. Okay, voices. But we'd be like one by one, layering. It was never like live jamming it and let's make a song right now. Which is how we've made music our whole lives in the past before. Like me and Daniel, we always made music like in a garage jamming, like, oh, look at this beat, make something to it. Now is different. Now is layer by layer because of how we live in apartments. You have to be quiet. And during the pandemic, even worse, because more people were home at all times, even on weekends. And so uh, once we went and recorded the album and we didn't get our tracks, we started getting all sad, and we're like, and so we started working on like, well, I was like, well, let's at least start working on the album cover here. Let's hire this artist to do the sigil. Let's hire this graphic designer to put it together. Let's get this guy to do t-shirts, like for when it does get here, we're like ready and we have a big drop for it. And so it still didn't come, and everyone was getting more and more angry, and I was trying to be like the calm down, like the neutralizer. And then his dad died. Our engineer's dad died, not because of COVID. I think he had cancer. And so that, like, we were like, fuck, he's gonna take longer to, I mean, yeah, it was sad, but we're like, we're not getting that album. And then we're like, okay, like 2 months is good, right? All right, 2 months, you've grieved, what's going on with the album? And then he's like, oh, like, I'm getting COVID. He got COVID and he almost died. And then he was in the hospital, and he would FaceTime us from the hospital, and he sounded bad. Like he was like, oh, I'm dying. And it was bad because he didn't get a vaccine, because he thought that he thought that if he got the vaccine, he was going to die. And so, yeah, he was like, he felt like he was already vulnerable, and he felt like if he got the vaccine, he was going to die from it. And so he got it bad. He almost died. He's in the hospital for like 3 weeks, and still to this day, he's like coughing all crazy. And so we're like, we're not getting that album. And then we're like, okay, it's been 2, 3 months. Like, all right, give us the album. And he's like, and then his sister's husband dies, who's like his only sister, and he was super close to him. And he died here in Austin, actually. And so it's like crazy. So we haven't gotten the album, but in January we started, like, we're like, fuck this, like let's at least start rehearsing live, like learning our own songs, like a cover band of our own songs. Let's learn them, listen to them, like try to recreate the effects. It's 17 songs, like we wrote them in the like 2-3 years. It was hard to remember what I used to write that sound, to make this sound to. So we had to like crack it and reanalyze everything we made. And then from January till now, what's April 21st, Earth Day, uh, we we've been practicing live, and finally we played a show like 2 months ago. Our friend Michael, who's the bassist, he joined another band even because he was all disheartened too. He's like, I'm just gonna play with these other guys because we're not even really doing anything. And we're like, yeah, cool, for sure, do your thing. We're still gonna do things, but do your thing. And so he was like, hey, our band's gonna have a show at Swan Dive in 2 months. Y'all want to play? We need one more band. And we're like, fuck it, yeah, let's do it. It'll be a good deadline for us to like crack it into gear and get it going. And so yeah, we started working on it, and then this last month we were like still not ready, so we started practicing like almost every day. And finally the show happened, and it was like a peak moment in my life, because I hadn't played original material for people in like 13 years, I want to say, since me and Daniel had a band in like high school, like senior year. That was like 2008. yeah, over 10 years, yeah, like 13 years. We hadn't played original material. We were in a cover band in college, but for money. Um, and it was nice because it did feel like an art show. It did feel like, come look at our paintings that we've been working on, and like so hard. And it was great. Like the community showed up, everyone was there, my parents, like all the friends, and it was, and I think because we prepared so hard for it, I wasn't as nervous as I thought I'd be, because it was like, if I wasn't so prepared, I'd be like, "Ugh, we're gonna sound like shit, I'm nervous." But since we were, and we felt confident, it was great, and everyone reacted super well. It felt very genuine, not just like, that was cool. It was like, no, people were like, dang, that was so cool. And everyone, even like the bouncers, the sound guy, people that don't have to tell us anything, that were like, hey, that was cool. And so it felt good. It felt good. It felt like it paid off. And I was like, yeah. And we were talking about it earlier with my coworkers. They're like, we're just tired of working for people, and we want to work on our own art, and stuff. And one of them was telling me like, you should set up a website and sell prints of your art. And I was like, nah, I think if I quit and went all in on one of my arts, it would be music, because I already have like a big vision and scope for like music videos and next album and this and that and that. And so yeah, it felt good. And I was even reflecting on the fact that like, damn, like we gathered like after a pandemic, like we used to take this shit for granted, like we were all there in the same place, like just like nothing, like. And granted, the museum here, the openings has already made me feel that, like, hell yeah, we're all here, it's great to see people again. I went to a beach house concert not too long ago, and it was nice to see like that scale of gathering as well. It was like I'd just be walking and walking for like 5 minutes to find my seat, and just watching rows of faces like smiling, looking on at the stage, like different faces, like, and I was like, it did something. I don't know. It feels good. It feels good to see people gather for music, for art.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad your show went well. That's really cool. So this last set of 5 or 6 questions from this set are going to be about the protest era during the pandemic.
Okay.
I feel like it's important to remember that that was something that happened because I think collectively we kind of agree that it was only able to happen because a lot of us were working from home and we had that freedom. Um, so Mexic-Arte Museum is in downtown Austin, Texas, just a few blocks away from the Texas Capitol building. You can see the Capitol building from the museum pretty much. Prior to the events of summer 2020, I remember sometimes feeling fearful while at Mexic-Arte Museum, which focuses on Mexican and Latinx art, since we haven't established that already, due to the growing anti-Mexican and generally xenophobic attributes under the Trump administration. Do you remember what the social environment in Austin felt like after the police murder of George Floyd? Um, did you participate in the protests against police brutality that took place, or know people who did? And do you have any memorable stories from that time?
Yeah, definitely. I think I went to like 3, because I know that each time I made a different sign, and I would try to go like really hard on the sign, because then I would like auction it, not auction it, but like do raffles for it to fundraise and donate to the cause as well. Which I thought was just, again, trying to knock as many birds with one stone as possible, to help. And so it was, yeah, so yeah, I agree. Like it it only, like, now there's stuff happening again as well, like just as bad as George Floyd. And now people aren't as upset, or people are like less scared or more scared to like organize and skip work now. It's like, it's it's sad. And even like talking about organizing at work to like ask for more fair things from our boss, like I feel like back then we were all way more like ready and willing to do things, and now people are more like, I don't know, which is mind-blowing, because I want to believe that everyone is like so willing and able and ready to like just risk your job for what's right. um and so yeah, being downtown sucked because we would see, it was cool to see the good marches, but of course when you would also see the Trump rallies and Alex Jones driving around in his giant tank. We've seen him like 4 or 5 times here, and even like during the January 6th thing at the Capitol, it was like planned that capitals in every state were going to be stormed too, not just Washington. And so yeah, we had people here with their AKs going down to the Capitol and just peacefully gathering, right? But it was, anything could happen. Like our sign literally says Mexic-Arte, and so if anyone really does have a problem like the El Paso shooter did with Mexicans specifically, which in his manifesto said that are like taking over Texas and turning it democratic, and um, so any person with any random idea can target us. It's very easy, especially being downtown, one of two buildings in all of Congress that are Latino owned and operated. Um, yeah, it's an easy target, and we we have no security. We have the people who work at the store are like three women who like just graduated college. Typically they're like 24. They constantly would have to deal with uh people who wouldn't want to wear their mask, or would be like talk be disrespectful to them for telling them to wear a mask. So being downtown, we're no longer in the community that we aimed to serve 38 years ago when it first opened. That community is now pushed out and been gentrified out into Del Valley and beyond, like where housing is more affordable. And even then, now with Tesla, like even Del Valley's not gonna be so affordable anymore. And so that's why the education outreach programs are important. But also we're thankful, but we are aware that our physical in-house demographic has changed to mainly tourists and white people, the tech companies that work downtown, who 90% of the employees are from out of town. Like all these companies claim and swear that they're gonna come here to hire locally, but they never ever do. They always bring people from all over the world, and uh, literally all over the world. So what makes you think that like the best qualified Austin person is gonna be is gonna beat out other qualified people from Denmark in the world, like all other places? So it's off the point, but yeah, I participated in the marches. We got tear gassed when we were in the highway. Like it was crazy. It wasn't even close to me. It was like maybe like 20 feet. Yeah, about 20 feet away, 30 feet maybe. And I see it blowing. I'm like, like it's just smoke there. But then in like 5 seconds, everyone was like, we couldn't breathe, and we like, it was scary because like you really can't, like it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but you couldn't breathe. Like every inhale you took hurt even more. So it was like hard, and we just like started running off the highway. And yeah, and I saw that was the same protest where the kid got shot in the head with the bullet and was like in a coma. And yeah, that was a bad one. That was the bad one, but it was also the big one, the influential one, the one where like it almost felt like millions, but thousands of people showed up, and it was like flooded the streets. And the one that in turn created the Office of Violence Prevention, like marching worked, and they defunded the police, and they created offices in Austin Public Health, one of them being the Office of Violence Prevention, which now funds us like 130,000 for our new education program, which is the one I'm coordinating now, and one of my coworkers took over screen it. And so and we called it Amarte, play on words with Mexic-Arte and arte, and Amarte is to like love you, love yourself. Um, and so it's really cool. Like, I love that program. It's awesome. I get to work with so many artists, but that's not the question. But
What's the goal of the program?
the goal of the program is to reduce violence in the community. So we had to really contemplate and reflect on that for a long time, because we only have 90,000 a year to like, and it was overwhelming at first. We're like, oh, there's hunger violence, physical, mental, all types of abuse and violences, which how do we solve all that with 90,000 a year? And so we had to kind of relax and focus on something that's more peculiar to us. And we felt that we wanted to build coalition between Black and Brown communities. So we feel that Black and Brown communities here, locally at least, aren't as united as we feel they should be. We feel like there's still a lot of separation, almost as much separation sometimes as we feel like, even xenophobia as we feel from white communities. Like we're just as scared to approach them, or we're just as scared to offer them a space. We're just as scared to like include them in our programming and our events and things like that. And so we wanted to change that, and we said, well, let's build programs where yeah, we're building coalition between Black and Brown communities, trying to work more with Black organizers and the Washington Carver and the educators there, like things that we hadn't done before or even thought about doing before. But also at the same time, we were like reflecting on yeah, like we don't want to tokenize either, but at the same time, like it requires moments like these to really reflect and be like, yeah, we haven't been doing that, so yeah, let's do it. And we're gonna actively stay doing that, hopefully. I mean, as long as I'm here. um and so it's been cool. Like it's been very rewarding. I uh Because of the marches, it was scary to be here, but at the same time, like it's also like a responsibility. Like since we're here, we have to educate. And I think this is a side of the fight, of the struggle, that a lot of people kind of criticize or turn their cheek to, which is like, well, I don't want to educate white people, or I don't want to talk to white people, and I don't want to change their minds, which I get it. It is exhausting because there's so many that we have to like convert or educate on these issues. But at the same time, if we're not doing that, like we're preaching to the choir. We're like, if we're not engaging with opposing views, and we're here physically where the opposing views are, then we should be holding these conversations and making these spaces more efficient. So yeah, we always try to go to the marches. We've gone to different ones, not even just the Black Lives Matter ones, but we went to the trans rallies too. They're always downtown. So it's both good and bad that we're so close to the Capitol, because most protests are typically, you well-intentioned and for good causes, but sometimes you get like the anti-maskers also protesting, and the January 6th insurrectionists. And so, yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself. So it sounds like you're not doing Screen It as much anymore, but you've shared with me that you frequently try to incorporate social justice advocacy into your teaching style. And it sounds like now you're getting to express that through Amarte, right? Which is amazing. It's really cool. But I wanted to ask, what did this look like for you before COVID and the protests? And can you share any examples, maybe about how it changed during the course of those events?
Yeah, for sure. So we were actually doing a social justice protest poster before the pandemic, before Black Lives Matter, which was really cool. Um, and so of course, once the pandemic happened and George Floyd happened, it kind of, back then my director was a little more skeptical. She was like, I don't know if this is good language for our funders, like I don't know if they want to see this kind of stuff. But then after she saw it, she was like, oh, this is great, this is like great opportunity. Let's keep doing more of that. Let's keep writing more, listen to the grants. And so I was already like, it was already big for me from, like I said, 2016 Hillary Trump election. I was already like, I don't know, like why are our people still this ignorant? Like, if I can at least change them while they're young, let's do that. Um, so it's always been important to me, um, and I wanted, uh, as I was learning, I wanted to be teaching that too, because no, I'm not like, I didn't study any any oppressed groups issues. I've learned, like I've said, I've learned most of it through community, through social media, through gatherings, word of mouth, and experiences too. So um, it's good to, it's always been important. We were always doing that type of programming. Um, Not always, but it was like my first year here that summer. I had the first one, which I named it a summer camp for Screen It, which was called Nuestra Lucha, because my partner was doing another summer camp based on like sustainability and global warming, and that one was called Nuestro Mundo. So I was just kind of riffing off her and just, you know, branding, and so, and it stuck, and so now we're still doing Nuestra Lucha and Nuestro Mundo. I would love to do it as well. Uh, Again, but right now we don't even have that position filled. So that could be something that I can hopefully influence the new person to like, hey, start the Nuestro Mundo one, and let's do like, let's team up with like Urban Roots, another nonprofit with kids, and do. It's all about making connections, and there's so many nonprofits and so many people who work for, who get paid exorbitant amounts of money to do as much work as we do or less, and they're like, I don't know what to do. I do want to give back too, but like I'm tired of just donating to APA or whatever, or UCLA over here, or ULA. So a lot of people are looking for opportunities to physically, in person, come in, connect, get involved. And so I feel like that's when the museum becomes really important, and programs like Amarte. um Amarte, like I said, it was so special because I was like, dang, this is coming from Defund the Police. That's like everything I'm about. Like, and I'm finally get to like walk the walk, you know, like I've been talking the talk, but now I get to really like, I never thought I'd be involved at this level, but just by chance, by luck, by being at the museum, I get money from that used to pay police. I want to do something cool with that. And so that's why this program is kind of like our luxury outreach program. And we try to bring like super legit artists to the schools to do like a very crazy workshop with the kids. That's not, and I try to make them be not like drawing or painting. Like I try to make them be a little crazier. So like our first one was a chef from here, from Oaxaca, who spent 8 years researching a cookbook, traveling all over Mexico, indigenous communities, and recipes that were like pre-Columbian, before the Spanish colonized, before there was animal products, before there was lard. How would they make tamales without lard? And so we made a lesson plan together. And this is like what I had to do. I had to kind of sit with each artist for like 4 hours, whether it's in one day or spread apart, to come up with like a fun thing, because not all of them are teachers and not all of them. So I gotta be like, all right, this is cool. So what we'll do is the materials. I have this much budget. We can do this, that. And then I make the transition into the classroom for them. That might be such a foreign and strange thing to them, most of them. I make it easy and fun and rewarding, like I said, and we all end up winning. Like the kids love it, the artists love it. They're like, "Oh, this was so cool." The hosting teacher's like, "Oh, this was great, thank you," and everyone loves it. And so it's sad when I tell them like, I might not. They're like, "Let's do this again next year," and I'm like, I might not be here next year because I'm trying to get out of museums and nonprofits. They're like, why? You're so good at what you do, and you're why? No. Tell Sylvia, like, I hope she knows what a great worker you are. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, we sadly, I don't think it's gonna go down like that, but yeah. So the programming has always been with that mission in mind. Because yeah, like art has always been vital to every movement, every change, every so every any movement without art has no face, and if doesn't have no face, when we look back at history and study these movements, we look at the photos, we look at the art, we look at the demonstrations, which are kind of performance based as well. Even when we study ancient civilizations, the only thing that tells us how life was like for them was looking at their art, their architecture, their murals, their pottery. So it's important, and I try to make that connection as often as possible in our programming.
Sorry, I'm muting myself so I'm not interfering with you, and then I keep forgetting. So I know you to be someone who makes a concentrated effort to be knowledgeable about local issues and elections. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit now. What are some issues that are especially concerning to you, especially as Austin faces unprecedented expansion as we reach this late stage of the pandemic where it's still happening, but we've largely moved on?
Okay, one more time. I'm sorry. I mean, I heard you. I just want to like really get the question part.
I can repeat it. I guess I'm kind of thinking in the vein of like Austin is being rapidly gentrified, and I think that the pandemic was an opportunity for this part will probably be cut out, but just so I can kind of
Rephrase.
just let you know what I'm thinking about. But um, I feel like the pandemic was an opportunity for all these people who have had a lot of money for development and that kind of thing. They took advantage of the pandemic as something that allowed them to conduct this expansion. So my question was that because I know you to be somebody you make the concentrated effort to be knowledgeable about local issues and elections. Um, just if you can talk about some issues that are especially concerning to you as Austin faces unprecedented expansion as we reach this late stage of the pandemic where it's still happening, but our institutions have largely moved on.
Yeah.
Like where are at the time of this recording, April 26th, 9:56 p.m. The mask mandate was lifted pretty recently within the past couple of weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think some of the bigger issues, as they have been, not just here, but in every growing city, and Austin being one of the fastest growing cities, is the gentrification, which brings a lot of loss of culture, erasure of culture, both locally and historically. I mean, you could say they're the same, but what I mean is like historically, like it'll push out, it'll erase neighborhoods that have their own like little things going on for themselves, and they don't really need too much of like the rest of the city or anything. And now like those places get erased and gentrified. Locally, I mean, like even downtown, like the gay district, right, is like about to get demolished to build another high rise, like. And so, and locally, what I mean locally is like as a city, we claim and we brand Austin as like a weird place because of all these weird little quirky businesses and things that have been here historically. And and now the gentrification and the fact that it's becoming a tech hub is like not appreciative of the weird. It's like, that weird stuff, that's what we wanted to get here, attract us to get here and see like everything else. And like it's cool, but it's not the vibe anymore. Like we're gonna make this into a tech place, and that's not quirky or weird really. uh and so I think that's one of Austin's biggest challenges, is that a lot of people from outside of Austin always knock on Austin for being too white, which I can see why they say that, and I can agree to an extent. And at the same time, I feel like this is the most diverse place I've ever lived in, for sure, coming from El Paso, the border. And a lot of El Pasoans come here, and a lot of people from the Rio Grande Valley come here as well. And and so I think it's important that we, I don't know if this was part of the question, but I think it's important that we reflect on that. Like a lot of times people are like, well, I want to leave because it's expensive now and it's too wide anyway. And like, it's like kind of giving up on the war, you know, like, uh, well, it's not for me anymore because it's not, it's not, it's not for public school teachers, for people making under 60, 70,000. Like that's what you need to make to be able to live comfortably here in Austin. And a lot of us, even here in the nonprofits, I can't believe there's still jobs that are paying 30 in the 30s, like 30,000s. And that's what I think didn't change from the pandemic. Like you said, like what a lot of these corporations kept on as business as usual. And they're like, we don't care. Like the rich got richer during the pandemic and the poor got poorer. And um, that didn't exclude Austin, and that didn't exclude my circle of friends, which yeah, a lot of them now, some of them have gotten their rent raised like $600 for the next year. And it's like, how do you adjust for that if your jobs aren't raising you? If inflation is happening at like 15% a year, and your job is only raising you like 3% a year, you're really taking a pay cut of 12%, 12% a year. And so those are the challenges, those are the struggles. I think as much for me personally, like I'm reaching an end point too, where I'm like considering like, yeah, like all my friends, some of them are like, we might move to Round Rock. And even my parents that are here, they're like, why do y'all want to be here so bad? Like, what's the point? Like, if it's so expensive. And I think it's that. I think the wealth that I do have here is my social wealth, like is my friends, is my community, is like all that is worth more to me than actual whatever I'm getting paid, which is why what's helped me to an extent for like the past 16, like the past 5 6 years, be able to put up with abusive starvation wages. It could be worse, but you know, it's hard. Like I've done things, I've done things as crazy as like, I mean, it's not really a secret to my close friends, but I try to keep it a secret like publicly because I don't want to, I mean, hopefully by the time people see this and dig back on this, I'm not there anymore. But I sold my car that I bought in the pandemic, and it was like a newer car, like 2017 Volkswagen GTI. I got it for like 20,000, and I was paying like $400 a month on it, and it was doable. But then with rent and everything, and then I lived 35 minutes out because I was the closest that I can find property for like 1100, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths in a nice field with no neighbors out in the country. So it was nice. But driving back and forth, and I moved out there when I was working in Del Valley, so it was 15 minutes away from Del Valley, and I was like, this is nice because it encourages me to stay in and like learn to cook because there's no McDonald's nearby or Whataburger or anything. And so I'm gonna like start doing all my own stuff out here. But then right after I moved in, I got the job downtown, and I was like, now I have to drive 30 minutes every day, twice a day. Um, and so now with gas prices, it's even more expensive. And so much so to the point where I've always been interested in like tiny homes and uh, campers and things like that. And so I started getting into people who live in their cars and like YouTubers and stuff. And it kind of inspired me. And I was like, damn, this fool lives in a Toyota Corolla. This girl lives in a Toyota Corolla with her dog. Like, well, let me see this whole channel and let me see how you do it. And so I started getting ideas, and I was like, not so much because I have to or I'm not making any money, but more so because I'm like, I need to save on every possible way, but I want to keep my life how it is, exactly the same. I still want to eat out. I still want to like buy coffee. I still want to like go out with friends on the weekends. I still want to like, go to a concert now and then, but I don't want to pay rent. I don't want to I don't want to pay for utilities. So how can I hack that and like do that? And so I sold my car. I bought a 2003 Honda Element used for $3,500. And then I turned it into a camper. I bought a purple mattress for $700. Boom, best bed I've ever had, because I could never afford an actual size one for my house, like a full size or a queen size. And so and yeah, so I stay in the parking garage here. Like I've hacked my car like 4 out of 7 days of the week. And so the other days I either go to my parents' place, or I'll stay with like a partner or something. So I'll do things like that because, like I used to think, I'm like, I'd rather keep struggling for the museum than struggle for like a restaurant or like a business that I don't really believe in what they're doing. But now I'm at this point where I'm like, I don't want to be Jeff Bezos rich or Elon Musk rich, but I want to make enough money to where I feel like now if I have more money, I can better distribute it to causes I believe in than the museum. Uh, I'm not saying I can have a bigger impact than the museum. I'm just saying like I'd rather just help out my immediate like circles and those circles and of their like ripple effects like that. So I'd rather distribute the wealth like that. Um, and I want to have enough money to where I can like make the music stuff better, get better gear if I have to, fix up my element even cooler, for if I do go camping outdoors and stuff, which I have, and it's great. Like I took it to Marfa, I didn't have to pay. I stayed in the camping grounds, didn't even have to pay because I was parked in the parking lot, and I still use their showers and their coffee in the morning and everything, and it was great. And then if I'm ever drunk too, like I'm like, oh, I don't want to drive anywhere. I just kind of park anywhere in a random little like hidden church or something or whatever I find, dark neighborhood, shut my windows, everything. No one suspects, no one even looks twice at an element. It's like the most low-key car. And and so yeah, like I it's getting harder to live here to the point where like it's pushing my creative problem solving skills on my personal life to a new limit, which I appreciate. Like I'm all about it. I'm like, hell yeah, how can I like not keep making Spectrum internet richer, or my landlord richer, who granted my landlord was actually a nice old white lady, just, but for people who live in apartments complexes that are like owned outside of Austin, why do you want to keep giving your money to them? Why is our housing system like this? Like, why can I not be one of the few brown people running on Congress for leisure? Um, like these are things for me too. Like Lady Bird, like when I first came in as a college student, I was like, dang, this would be a great place to live in. Oh, there's all these cool places to run. Look at people biking here. And then you get here and you're like, nah, you're not gonna live here. You're gonna live 30 minutes away, figure out how to fucking bike out there and walk and exercise out there. But it's like, no, these are places for us too. Like, and I'm constantly trying. So I'm fighting for like staying here and keeping my social wealth is what feeds me. Um, and now I'm running out of of ambition to professionally keep the cause going, I guess.
Damn, that's really radical. I shouldn't have said the D word. Sorry, y'all can cut that out. Wow. So, do you want to talk about what? So, I guess this is what I meant, that I feel like you're somebody who really lives your values. Like, I mean, and I've heard you verbalize it now too. It's not just about talking the talk; it's about walking the walk. And you're figuring out increasingly how to do that, how to really demonstrate what your politics and beliefs are. Um, so I just wanted to briefly talk about kind of like, what do you look for in candidates you support, and um, what do you envision, as the best case scenario for Austin as it keeps growing?
Well, this is a tough one because I do feel like I lost a lot of hope in just electoral politics. Because as you see it, it didn't work. It hasn't worked. We even see it in France right now. They just reelected Macron, but it wasn't just an election. Like if you really look at the news, they were protesting hard over there, like the elections in general. Like we've never done that. We've never been. I mean, I guess January 6th insurrectionists did. That was pretty intense, but we've never really protested together. Like we don't want either of them. That was like, we want Trump. We want one real bad. But in France, they were going hard on like, we don't want either of them. These elections suck. Like, we're done with this. And we didn't hear about it here. Like, we didn't really, it didn't get covered much here. But I think globally, and France is a country that is not a two-party system like the US. Like, they have 3, 4 parties. And but little by little, capitalism has made like, no, let's just do the far right and the far left. Call them whatever you want in Mexico and the US and France, but it's like the far right and the far left. And either extremely conservative or extremely liberal. And what ends up happening is that the the conservatives always end up sucking in the liberals, and that happens here too. Whoever we called super progressives candidates, and they start off as progressive candidates like Macron did, and Macron himself quoted saying that like, I'm not a liberal, like I'm more of like a centrist progressive, uh because I used liberal to like get in and get the support because I know what issues are affecting the people. And like straight up, like he'll say that he's on record saying that. And so it's sad because he might say the quiet part out loud, but over here, like our candidates are better at like hiding and being performative, and we just kind of believe it because of identity politics, you know, like if we put a black trans woman as like a MAGA right wing candidate, like you'd be surprised how many centrist liberals are going to be like, well, maybe I should support this, like this person instead. And so I think we're at this point where like it's too fake now, like and I'm sad. I don't want to sound like super pessimistic, like anarchy, but I do feel like instead of instead of I'm at this point, and I don't know how many people are there with me right now. I'm at this point where like I'm done hoping for salvation, and I'd rather spend my time and energy imagining the future, right? And it might sound crazy and ridiculous at first, but we need that. We need people to be crazy and ridiculous and be like, what if we did like take back the land and build communes and have like open relationships, and because monogamy is capitalistic and it's like the system is more involved in our lives than we want to admit, a lot of people. And I think in the hope for Austin in the future, OVP, Office of Violence Prevention, it's given me hope that, you know, the government does care, even though they wanted to refund them right away, right after with Prop B last year. Um, so, and I've met people in OVP that I'm like, damn, these people are cool. Like these people are like me. Like they're in there and they want to find other people that are like them. And so I'm actually in conversation right now with my city person from OVP and I'm like, hey, I need to meet with you one-on-one. I've been trying to meet with her last week, but I was super busy because of the show and all that. But this week I'm like, what's your availability? And she's like, yeah, let's talk, whatever. And I'm gonna tell her, I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm thinking about quitting. Like I'm thinking about switching into tech and stuff. I'm done, but I feel like I have all these great ideas and I do cool programming and I PM as the tech people call it. I'd be a good project manager for things. And I've heard her say in our meetings, she's like, yo, I get the data federally, like these are the issues. how do we solve them? And I'm like, dude, I can come up with so many ideas, and I could bring people to the table that we can riff off of and create crazy cool programs. um so I want to do that. I want to be like, hey, hire me or not. I'm going to be just another lost talent that the city and other nonprofits have. That happens all the time, which is okay with me, because like I said, just because I don't get hired by the city doesn't mean that I'm going to stop living my life, like you said, like live, like walking the walk. Like I can't stop. Like I can't see anything that would stop me. And even like I've even splintered and broken off from deep and meaningful relationships because of that, like romantically too, because fundamentally we didn't align on things like that. Uh and that's and I don't know, like I've just recently stopped doing therapy, but I started in 2020 because of the pandemic. Our development associate was like, we need mental health. I've done some research, here it is. And we got really lucky with a really amazing um, therapist. And I just recently stopped because she eventually graduated and went on, like she climbed up, like of course we expected she would. And her rates went up, and she's at like, and even though she was on sliding scale for us, point is, she always told me, like, because I would love her, because I would be like, am I crazy for thinking in this and wanting this? Like I feel crazy because everyone tells me I'm crazy, like. And then when I say that this is what I want to do, or this is how I want to have a relationship, or this is, and she's like, nah, just the more you vocalize, the more you say things, like it'll filter the people. And that's what you need. Like you need to not never stop vocalizing and saying what you want and how you want to live and who you want to be. Like keep doing it, keep saying it, because it'll bring people who are also waiting to hear someone like you say it and be like, me too, that's me. Like, and that's the only way things will get done, is never by yourself, but by building the community. And so the future for Austin is, uh, a good future for Austin is that we organize more radically like that, and kind of get involved with the government and be like, hey, we have ideas to combat food deserts. That was an idea I had too recently. I was like, and there's so many Sonics closing everywhere. Like everywhere I'm driving, there's a close shut down Sonic, all graffitied everywhere. Mostly in like the east side and the the low income areas that are getting gentrified. But I'm like, what if the city? Because my parents also want to start selling food, and so, but I'm like, no, it's very competitive. It's gonna be a pain. Y'all don't trust me. Y'all don't want to be inside a hot car like for hours. And so I'm trying to think creatively on how to like get them more comfortably to serve that mission too, of like healthier food. And so I'm like, what if the city pulled some like eminent domain on the Sonic properties and was like, hey, well, since we'll buy these properties from you, um, and we're gonna make fast food from the government, like government fast food at competitive prices that are just as cheap, if not cheaper, than McDonald's and Taco Bell. But it's healthy food. Like we got nutritionists, the best ones, and it's all locally sourced, and ingredients are from urban roots or whatever. Like it's all cool. Like people are getting paid right. There's benefits. It's a city fucking job. You're flipping burgers, but it's a city job. You got the city benefits, and like, what if we turned all those spots into easily accessible, like healthy food from the government? Like, and so people now have that option too, because the only reason people, minorities and are more obese and suffer diabetes more is because, we don't have time to cook, we don't have time to go get groceries. And so when you see 10-piece chicken nuggets for $4 that you can get in 5 minutes, it seems a lot more like appealing than going and spending more money and time up and down the aisles of HEB. And so I have ideas, and I want to do them, but I'm also like, if I don't do them, I'm cool with that too. I'm like, I'll have many other ways of voicing my things and changes and stuff, but there's nothing like having money. So I want a little bit more money. think you're muted.
I am. I tried to unmute myself and it didn't work. Sorry.
It's those dogs, huh? I heard them.
Oh no, sorry. So my final question for this really big, long section before we move on to the final questions on the COVID pandemic, is there anything you'd like to add or share about any of the roles that you play that should be mentioned for the sake of our future students, scholars, and people in general to best understand what the cultural moment regarding race, politics, and art is like in Austin and how it's changed over the course of the past 2 years, since the pandemic became a great presence in our lives? Basically, so this is just an aside. This is not for like the publication, but basically this is your chance to say anything else you want to say before we wrap it up.
For the students.
For
the future.
for anybody who's might be looking at this like 10, 15, 20, 100, 300 years in the future, what do you want to say in your little time capsule of like, this is what it was like? To be fair, I think you've done a really excellent job of it already. So if there's no pressure, but like if there's anything else you'd kind of like to add.
Yeah, you said something about like to future students when they're looking back on the pandemic and how it changed things.
This moment, yeah.
This moment. Okay. So actually something you said on Instagram not too long ago, which said something about you were having like a really nice day of like inspiration of education, right? And you're like, damn, academia is actually cool. Like it's not all that bad, right? Something like that.
Yes, yeah, just for the record, I'm also a TA in my capacities as a student at UTRGV, and this is the first semester that we've had the opportunity to be back in person. So most of our semester, there's two classes. One is lower division, one is upper division. So the lower division one is mostly already set up. The upper division one, we've done mostly online, but we're doing our presentations for the final paper that kind of help facilitate the final paper. So that way we thought it'd be best to do it in person. That way we could really have them in front of us and be like, here's how we give you feedback. Anyway, that's been really rewarding because a lot of the students in my class have been receptive to the office hours that I've been opening up for them and have taken the time to come and talk to me. And I'm starting with a bunch of students who, this is an entirely different conversation, but being from the Valley and being in a Mexican art and architecture class, there tends to be kind of a rejection of that because we tend to be very white assimilated here, despite our heritage and despite the fact that we are either ethnically and culturally from the border or from across the border. So that being said, a lot of these students come into this class not really interested in the topic. So it has been really rewarding that now they're like, I have too much to talk about. I'm so interested in this topic. I can't stop researching. And that's been really cool because also I see their skills in research and all that grow. But yes.
Yeah, so I like that you said that because I feel like even when I first met you, you were a student. So I feel like you've never stopped being like a scholar. And so at the same time, it's cool that you're also very aware of all the like institutional like flaws and the gatekeeping and the accessibility and all that stuff. But to the future students, I want to say like Benito Juarez, the indigenous president of Mexico, who was like super socialist, he would always say that education was like extremely vital and important and a fundamental right, and it was like essential for the freedom, for the liberation of each person. And I still see that as true. Like it's harder to imagine that now with how like lagging and like slow and weak our public school systems are now. But it's very true, at least in the university level, at the it's more real, like it's more like everything before public schools was like, now let's really like learn for those who want to. And it's cool for you. Like, I'm glad to hear that you feel you get in touch with that reward of like seeing kids that really want to learn things, because yes, yeah, just like we got to learn, we got to keep learning. Like, none of the everything that all these little things that I just talked about, all the decisions that I'm making in my life, living in my car, like I said, even breaking relationships because they were like, oh yeah, that's cute that you want to do that. And just like trying to really live the vision and the goals that I have for like my future. uh they all start with learning these things. They all start with learning. The more I learn, the more like spiritual I feel. Even if I science, biology, history was all forced on me in public schools, but when I was able to approach it on my own terms, on my own time, like these kids are with you, oh, it was like the best. And when I'm finally ready for it, like I learn about DNA and how cool it is, and like bacteria and phages, and how phages are a virus and they don't want to kill us though, but they do want to kill bacteria, and all this crazy stuff that I'm just like, dang, like it makes me feel more spiritual than, like, I grew up Catholic, so like more spiritual and lucky and special to be alive than like any story of like God crafted you with his own hands and mud and blew into your nose and he knows every hair on your body, and like, no, these are real things. Science, it's real, it's beautiful. So whether it's science, whether it's history, whether it's like, it's super important for you to like find your genuine true essence. And so yeah, keep learning, keep researching, and stay surrounded by people who are also interested in learning and researching and similar things, and if not different things, because we can't be everywhere at once. And so it's cool to relay and be able to talk about, like, tell me about science that you're an expert on, or archaeology that you are. So yeah, keep learning. It's important, and hopefully we like, make we also transform and revolutionize education on all levels, not just like adulthood, because it's happening at all stages of human life. Uh, yeah, that's all.
Thank you. This last section asks you to share any stories or you have about this pandemic and the response by local, state, and national elected officials. Feel free to respond or pass on any of these questions. Do you feel satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in Austin slash Hidalgo? I mean, not Hidalgo, sorry. Let me redo that. Austin and Travis County over the last 2 years?
Do I feel what?
Satisfied with the local response to COVID to Austin. Sorry. Okay. Let me start again. Let me start that
Okay,
again.
I got you. Do you feel satisfied with the local response to
Wait,
COVID-19?
let me ask you. Let me ask you.
Oh.
Do you feel satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in Austin slash Travis County over the last 2 years?
Definitely not. And again, it's not Austin's fault. It's on a federal level. And like I said, because of capitalism, we weren't ready, we weren't prepared. These are all things that could have been foreseen, or just, yeah, just been taken care of more efficiently. The US was one of the worst, in my opinion, the worst handling the pandemic from all the countries. So yeah, I'm not satisfied, but I will say, like UT and Austin Public Health, they did try and they did do really well to open up testing stations and the shots, like the vaccine drives and everything. So it was good, but it wasn't. Do I feel satisfied? It was satisfactory. Yeah, I was satisfied, but it wasn't great. It wasn't exemplary.
Um, are you satisfied with the state response to COVID-19 led by Governor Abbott over these last couple of years?
No, no, he wanted to do lift mask mandates from like day one. And he didn't believe in the science. And yeah, he's no.
So you've already said this, but how do you feel about the national response to COVID-19 led by President Trump in the year 2020 and then President Biden from 2021 to present?
Well, yeah, it was bad, but I will say Trump gave us more money and he was more on that, on like sending out money than Biden. And so if anything, I want to say Trump did better than Biden on the response when we all were thinking that he was going to do worse. And um, so yeah, Biden just kind of rode the wave of Trump's efforts. But
You mean in terms of the individual payments?
in terms of, yeah, and the responses to, like, Trump basically was the one who did the Operation Warp Speed to like really get a vaccine at all costs, like with Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson and Johnson.
If you had the power of political office to respond to COVID-19, what would you do differently?
Had the power to respond to COVID-19. Oh, well, what I said, we would have had a bunch, just like we have military bases with tanks and planes that we're not using and we're never going to use, like, because they're so old now. But we don't know how to get rid of them. We should have warehouses and bases for pandemic responses, which are scientists have been telling us that are going to happen every like 100, 200 years. And so why aren't we as ready for that war as we are for these other like little imaginary financial wars? So yeah, I'd treat it like an actual war and have warehouses and spaces just as big as army bases filled with ventilators and shots, test, whatever equipment, mask, sanitizer, just ready to go for when it happens, and keep jobs and employment based on maintenance of those places, not just like, oh, they're there and we're going to leave them collect dust. No, like they require people to keep maintenance of them and so on. But
This year is a special year in our national democracy because it's a midterm election voting year. Do you plan to vote? And if so, is the issue of COVID-19 going to factor into your votes?
these are good questions. Who came up with these questions?
um,
um No, I'm not going to vote. I've decided I'm done voting. 2020 was my last year. I did it reluctantly and I'm done. Like, unless it's like underdog third party case, which is highly unlikely. Like I said, I'm done waiting for salvation to come from the government, at least on policy scale. So if that's not coming, then I'm gonna keep spending my time and efforts and money and energy on a community level, which I think everyone should do. And yeah, and if the government does want to get involved and help, uh, I think on a local level is better to be involved. So national democracy, no. Midterm election, no. Is COVID-19 a factor? Uh, Not exactly, not anymore. Like, I don't think a candidate can come and say like, I'm gonna make COVID better or prevent it, because they won't. We're talking more so about loan forgiveness and other things like that now, which yeah.
so that being said, will you consider the national response to COVID-19 to the COVID-19 pandemic in your vote for a presidential candidate in 2024?
Do I consider the what response?
Will you consider the national response to the COVID-19 pandemic in your vote for a presidential candidate?
Well, if it's even an issue, because I don't know if it will be, like I said, like it'd be interesting. I'm gonna watch the debates and everything and I'll stay informed, but I'm not gonna vote. I think the Democratic Party has relied too much on like fear mongering of like, well, if you don't vote for us, he's gonna get DeSantis or whoever, or Candace Owens, or I don't know. And so I think they take for granted that they're getting our vote no matter what, because we show up. When we show up, we win. And I don't think they deserve that anymore. I think they need to see that we've lost faith and that they need to change the strategy or rebrand or become a new party or something. Because even when they do it performatively, we still win a little bit. Like they defunded the police and created programs. It could have been performative. Now they want a refund, but hey, we got our money, like, and we're doing the work out here. So I'm looking more for opportunities like that, like trickle down into the community, not so much in a single person. And I think also the fact that we like glorify and make heroes out of candidates sets us up for very big disappointment. So if they talk about COVID-19 as an issue, will it affect my vote? No, not really.
Is there anything else you would like to share with me about your experiences with COVID-19 that I have not asked about?
No, not really. No. I think we covered everything.
Thank you, Jose, for sharing your stories with me for the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History Project.
Awesome. Thank you for reaching out.
And see.
Recording.
Yeah, they're gonna be like editing all this and to make it like to make it ready for publication. Thank you so much. This was
it was fun. It
awesome.
was the most in-depth interview I've ever done.
The last question, so like the first set of questions and the last set of questions that were like more specifically about COVID, those were written by like my professor, I guess, who's like gotten really good at this, and she like teaches this in class. So
what is this class?
It's actually a medical para this, but it's in the vein of like oral history. And I actually really enjoy these projects. Like I've loved learning about a medical para this just from the perspective of like, I don't know. Oh man, I got some PDFs for you, dude. Okay, yeah, I got some PDFs and some book recs.
Yeah.
But he's like the father of like Mexican American studies, and he was from the Valley, and he was like the first person to like be kind of taken seriously, to fight for to be taken seriously. He was actually a professor at UT, and he's the one who established the Mexican American Studies Center, all of that. So he's kind of like
here at UT.
Yeah, here at UT Austin. Yeah.
He was part of the MAS founders.
Yeah.
Damn, you should bring him to the show or tell him to come to the show.
He died in like.
He's too old?
Yeah, he was super old.
Oh.
Yeah.
He died?
Yeah, he died in like 2000 at like an old age. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, but you should definitely if you want like learn more about him.
Yeah, please.
But I actually took so you got to read like George Washington Gomez with the pistol in his hand. I really like The Shadow. Those would be the ones I say that you have to like read. But anyway, I took this class. I didn't take this class. I took a like intro to Mexican Americans, like a survey class at UTRGV when I was applying to grad school, because I I needed like another credit to apply for the art history degree in art history. And so I just ended up taking a full semester because I was like, let me just get back into school and whatever. So I took a Mexican American Studies course with Dr. Rivera, who's the professor that teaches this class at the graduate level. And anyway, so that's why I've done this before, but I actually like really enjoy doing this. And this was really cool. I feel like you really captured like what your experience is, and thank you for sitting with me for 3 whole hours.
Yeah.
Talking to me, I'm like feeling fed and like inspired, which is all you can ever ask for, right? And to not each and just like give that in return. But you're making me miss Austin. I would really love to move back. But I'm probably actually moving to Houston, and then when
Oh, yeah.
all when I make our first million, then we'll move back to to Austin.
Okay, hell yeah.
But I don't know actually. Hopefully it won't take that long. I'm hopefully going to be applying to like PhD programs in Austin. I know like right everybody's like, oh, go somewhere else and like go get out, but I just feel like I'm so committed to Texas like intellectually,
Yeah,
where this is like, I don't know, if you go to California, it's like there it's a different Chicano, it's a different Mexican American.
different, yeah.
It's different. And I, even though I, never want to deny myself those experiences, I just feel like Austin's where I need to be if I'm trying to learn. So thank
It's a
you.
battleground for sure. It's like
Austin?
it's a battleground and it's national fucking attention. Like everyone's has their eyes on it. Elon Musk, sorry, because of fucking Elon Musk and all the bullshit he's doing here. So
Yeah.
how many people all over the fucking world, not just here, but all over the world are like, what, Austin? Why is he there? Oh, interesting. I should go there too.
You know what? And you know what, Jose? Not just Austin. You know where his starbase is?
In Brownsville, no?
Boca Chica, yeah, which is like the coastal part of Brownsville.
We had an art
So
piece about that on the last exhibit.
I heard that there was I need to like stay in touch with the museum better, but
I
yeah,
mean,
I'm excited to like tell you about like what my thesis is about, but then also I have like a dissertation idea which is like exactly about this, which is why I was kind of like
yeah,
trying to tie in the gentrification and like expansion of Austin that I feel like very much is now being paralleled in the valley because of Elon Musk. And so yeah, we'll definitely talk more about this.
hell
I
yeah.
really appreciated this.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you when I'm back in Austin.
Yeah, when are you coming back?
When should I come back? The summer? When does
Yeah,
this did y'all just open this exhibit?
yeah, like 2, 3 weeks ago. So
How long will it be open, do you know?
probably till like October. It's
Okay.
gonna be long.
Well, I'll be
Yeah.
in Houston, so I'll be like, I think I already told you that. So I'll
When
be
are you
like,
moving to Houston?
I'm gonna be slowly moving after the semester ends, just like I
Where's
guess
Alan right
really
now?
put myself up there. He's in Sugarland, so he's like in with his family, but we're working on
Where's
basically the
Sugarland?
idea. Sugarland is like a suburb of Houston.
Okay.
So I'm slowly gonna be just like moving up there. Because the idea is like I want to start working at his family's like jewelry business. Um, so we can get that experience, but then also save money to like move out and have our own place by like early next year, maybe. Um, yeah, and we have two puppies now.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So it's all happening. I don't know. Finally, I feel like I've been like stuck until I finish my degree, but like also it was like, if I don't do this degree, what am I going to do with my time during the pandemic? Just because I felt like I didn't have enough skills or education to like be employed by somebody I want to like work for. But maybe it's like, maybe then we'll work for ourselves and that's what it's going to look like. I don't know. Who knows? It just like, I feel like I'm conquering my anxiety and fears around certain things, and in particular like school now. um Feeling like more capable in doing it is allowing me to like move forward, you know what I mean? Like this is I mean, I won't say like I've been a perfect student this semester, but like I definitely like feel the most capable I've ever felt, and like I think conquering those fears has been really like, it's been like a big looming task in my life that's been like, a spiritual task that's been preventing me from moving forward in certain ways. So now it feels like, yeah, like all these things are gonna like slowly change, and it's like gonna be interesting to see how that goes. Sorry. This is,
Nah, you're good. I was about to say, well, now we're doing your 3 hour interview.
I know. You ready? Buckle in.
What was your favorite? No,
Okay, 33333. We just hit that. All right. Well, thank you so much. Uh,
yeah,
you better get out of the museum, man. Like, go somewhere.
I know. I'm trying. I'm trying. So much shit going down right now. You don't even know. It's crazy. I feel like I need to become the union rep for the staff because Sylvia's doing some sketch shit, and
Oh
kind
my
of
god.
I feel like we're gonna maybe like soon, like orchestrate a strike and call on the community for support and like, but I'm gonna talk to her before and
Yeah.
I'll be like, look, I know you fucking care about your legacy and all your history and shit. Whether we do this for a day or a week or a month, it's gonna go down in history under shit that happened because of you. So we can talk negotiate before we do this,
Yeah.
or it's gonna be in the history that we fucking did it and that you didn't fucking support and that you never budged and that you fought us hard. So yeah, but yeah, it's crazy. But
Danielle
I'm ready. Like,
Danielle just got a new job too.
it's got
God,
a new
finally,
job.
thank God.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I'm ready to like get fired, but I want to have like something lined up,
Yeah.
whatever.
No, I mean, I
And
think like you said, like you'll be able to your safety net is the community. Like people,
yeah,
you've done such a good job at this job for so long, like for so much less than, you know, even nonprofits should be paying you. And like I know for a fact like people have seen that and they're like, you're gonna bounce back and better.
yeah. I'm applying to like customer success jobs from home that I could just be on a call on the phone and be like done that pay as much. So that's why I'm like, as soon as I get one, I'm gonna still kind of come into work and like and be like doing both. But I'm gonna be like, all right, bro, we're striking. Peace.
Yeah,
And everybody like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
dang. I had another question, not an interview question, just a regular question. Um, I don't know, man. Yeah, I would love to hear about it. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, hit me
Also,
up
I
if you
think
want to talk about.
it's a long time coming, huh?
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. Long time coming. I was gonna say hit me up if you want to talk about like your thesis and shit. I would love to hear about it.
I would love your perspective. Yeah. Can I just like call you?
Tell me.
Just like call you like
Oh
whenever.
yeah, for
Just
sure.
if you're free, you answer. If not, you call me whenever.
Yeah, or text me first or whatever, and then I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.